This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie. Scientists at the UC Berkeley SETI at Home project say they'll stop sending new work to the network of volunteers who've been using their computers to search for aliens since 1999. The project is going into hibernation on March 31st, according to a post on its website. The scientists will now focus on studying the results they brought in and writing a scientific journal paper on the findings. Millions of volunteers around the world downloaded the SETI at Home screensaver over the years to help analyze radio telescope data and search for extraterrestrial intelligence, according to the group. SETI stands for the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Scientists are looking for narrow bandwidth radio signals from space, which are not known to exist in nature. It required huge amounts of computing power, so the program broke the data into chunks that ordinary PCs can handle. Since it was a screensaver, it ran whenever volunteers were not actively using their machines, creating a huge virtual supercomputer. Health officials all over the world are fighting to slow the spread of the novel coronavirus. They're also working to stem a secondary issue that the World Health Organization is calling an infodemic. The WHO defines an infodemic as an overabundance of information, some accurate and some not, making it hard for people to find trustworthy sources and reliable guidance when they need it. The problem is aided by the ease and speed which false information or misleading information can spread online through social media. As the disease has spread, so have the false claims online about how it began, the number of people infected, and promises of magical cures. The social media manager for the WHO said the organization is working directly with social media companies to ensure users are directed to trusted sources. One study by the U.S. State Department, reported on by the Washington Post, said roughly 2 million tweets toting conspiracy theories about the virus had been posted outside the U.S. over a 3-week period when the disease began to spread outside of China. A Chilean man has been arrested after destroying one of Easter Island's famed statues by crashing into it with his truck. The damage angered the community who look after the sacred Moai statues. The local mayor tried to pass an anti-driving measure 8 years ago with no effect. He believes that this week's accident could be a motivating factor to reconsider introducing the proposal. The Moai statues represent ancestral figures and may have also been ways to show where freshwater sources were located. This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS speed ready. Contact, nice to be in orbit.
The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting from a shack on a hill in the mossy creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas, this is Lighting the Void, and I'm your host, Joe Root. We are live on the Fringe FM. It's Friday night, open lines with our co-host tonight. It's been a while since he's been on, Jeff Harmon from jeffharmon.com. And Jeff, has been on the show probably since the beginning of Lighting the Void, and we talk all things astrology, Eastern astrology, Western, Kabbalah, spirituality, the times, the energies that are going on right now. And it's important to know about what's going on right now. There's a lot of crazy things going on, and we need to take a deeper look into this and a deeper metaphysical look into what's going on. There's nobody better to do that with than Jeff. JeffHarmon.com is the website you need to go to check it out for reference tonight. I also want to thank our sponsors at AncientLifeOil.com, GetTheTea.com, and Metaphorical Archaeology. Barbara Charlton's fabulous EFT sessions that you get pro bono. If you've had a paranormal experience that's caused you any trauma, you can give them a call at 214-995-3754. And also head over to UFOseekers.com. If you want to keep a journalistic approach to ufology, they're our partners as well. And I really could use the donations. If you guys can donate right now, that would be fabulous. I mean, some of you got your tax checks. I know you did. And instead of buying, like whatever you're going to do, that all that junk food you plan on buying or whatever, you can, support Lighting the Void. Or you can grab a t-shirt, and really, like if you go to the store, there is an item in that store that really helps out the show, and I actually put it in there. If you buy the socks, that's what you need to get. The socks are overpriced socks, and that's what they're titled, overpriced socks. So we get about $6 or $7 if you buy those socks. So there you go. So if you want to get something out of the deal, that's what you need to get. Now, Jeff needs no introduction, actually. I mean, he's been on a ton of radio shows, coast to coast, fade to black. He's been around since the beginning of this digital radio era, and a lot of people look to him for knowledge, insight, inspiration, as well as advice. And he's worked with several Hollywood clients and big people, but he can't really talk about who they are. But he also runs it's Conjunction Entertainment, right? I want to say it right, Jeff. That's what, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so you run your own production studio kind of thing too. You always got a lot going on, man. You know that?
Yeah. I always got a lot going on.
So so before we get into all the astrology and stuff too, I really do. I honestly haven't talked to you in forever. I really want to, give me an update, man. Like, how you been? How are things been going for you?
Oh, I've been doing good. I've been really busy. Had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of clients, and just keeping busy, It's a busy time of year. A lot of people are really concerned about everything that's going on, particularly, the coronavirus. It's interesting. I have another office I work at down in Beverly Hills, and I often go to the Earth Cafe, which is kind of an old traditional cafe since the 80s. And I went in there yesterday. Usually there's a line around the block, and I couldn't believe how empty it is. It's really amazing how much effect this the coronavirus has had on everyone. And everyone is just really paranoid. And you can't blame them either. It's certainly something nobody wants to get. I think there's, you had a great newscast on at the beginning of your show saying, that there's been a lot of conspiracy theories out about it. And I've heard them, I'd say a good portion of them, and a lot of them aren't true. We know one of them probably is, though, huh?
The man-made conspiracy to me seems a bit obvious, though, Jeff, doesn't it? Like this has been meddled with a little bit.
The most plausible one, and I don't want to contribute to conspiracy theories, but the most plausible one was it might have matriculated out of Canada and out of a lab in China, and it got loose. That's the one that kind of fits. It got loose because I don't think China would have wanted this, and I don't think anybody would have wanted this. I do think China's been obfuscating the fact of the data, which has not done them or us any good. But I think what's interesting is this really got going. Remember, I said the Saturn-Pluto conjunction was going to happen on January 12th. That's very, very close to where this happened. But another phenomena I hadn't mentioned that's going on, and it's really shown in Vedic astrology, is something known as a Kalasarpa Yoga. Kalasarpa Yoga is a strange term. If anyone's familiar with astrology knows, it's the moon's north and south node. That's where eclipses happen. happen. The sun and the moon and the earth align. They're really not planets. They're just mathematical points called a node. Even in electronics and electricity, we often call things nodes where current conjunctions join. So it's the same thing in astronomy. So what happened is this started right around the 25th of January, which is just a little less than 2 weeks ago, or about 2 weeks ago. And that's when it really became manifest. And what's strange about that is that was the beginning of the Kalasarpa Yoga. So this is a really weird time. And every 2 weeks, the only thing that breaks this Kalasarpa Yoga is the moon. So every 2 weeks, the moon will swing around, because the moon goes around the earth once a month. That's our monthly timer. And it'll break it. So we have 2 weeks of Kalasarpa Yoga, approximately 2 weeks with it off, 2 weeks with it on, 2 weeks with it off. And this goes on all the way up until the latter part of May. Actually, about May 10th is when it's broken. And, this is weird, because any child that's born, and for any woman out there who's listening, who's pregnant or, expecting couples, this is not like bad or cursed or anything like that. And I think Vedic astrologers tend to make Kalasarpa yogas out more evil than they are. I would just say that they're very powerfully fated times. And I find most people who have a Kalasarpa yoga, and we know there's going to be children born between now and May, and some of them will be born without it, because remember, every 2 weeks the moon breaks it. The moon will travel between the north and the south node. So when it does so, it will then, anybody who's got an astrology program, or if people like getting on AstroDeeth or other, website programs, a lot of people do that. You can actually,
that's a popular one too, right? Yeah.
And there's even phone apps now that you can see this stuff. So what does this all mean? Well, every time this happens, which is about every 18 and a half years, major events happen in the world. Like, perfect example, the last time this happened was right around 9/11, and it happened for a series of times then. Now, you can tell it really had a big effect on the world. Everything changed from that point. And look what we're hearing. Now, people don't want to shake hands anymore. If someone sneezes,
right, yeah.
I've got clients calling me from New York going, hey, man, we want to get out of here. Because, in New York, you're like a can of sardines going down the main streets and subways and elevators. I mean, you're shoulder to shoulder. So people are really paranoid, and probably with good cause. I get that this thing's going to peak out and probably really get under control and go bye-bye after May.
I mean, that's what they all do, right? That's usually what they all do, I think.
I think this is probably a bigger scare than it really is. And I don't mean to minimize it, because people definitely are dying. But again, you listen on the mainstream news, they say the same thing, the real ones at least, and that is the flu kills more people by ratio.
Well, anatomically, though, just let's be fair. There are a lot of viruses that inflame the lungs, right? We know that, or a part of the lung or something like this. And I don't know specifically how many do this, but I do know that the coronavirus inflames the entire lung. It can get to that point. And when it gets to that point, that's when things get a little bit rough, because you start getting fluids and in you, and
Sure.
So, but I mean, it's really not different than a lot of respiratory infections, I don't think. So, I'm not a doctor, but that's what I looked up about it,
Yeah, exactly. I don't know a lot about it. What I find really interesting is how accurately it paralleled right when these Kalasarpa yogas started, this whole series of Kalasarpa yogas. This is, I've been mentioning, I remember with George Norrie back on Coast to Coast, God, it had to be 2010 or 11. Everyone and Mel Fabregas on Veritas, they were all saying, yeah, they were all saying to me, what do you think about the Mayan calendar? And I said, not much. I can't come up with anything. And not only is this an electional year, but this is the year I've been speaking about. These are the times. I would say the next 3 or 4 years for this country, the United States, very, very dramatic changes coming on. I don't think I need to mention how polarized the country is about, the political situation. I mean, people literally hate Donald Trump or they love Donald Trump. Some are in between, but most of them are very, very polarized.
I hate listening to him talk, but I like the fact that, but I also like the fact that he's like me. He doesn't say the best words all the time, but he means what he's saying, right? Like, even if it's BS, right? He means it. He's got passion behind him a little bit. It's kind of like this. When he talks about this stuff like, oh, we're the best this ever and that best stuff ever, I'm like, he gives you, it's like the car salesman stuff. But here's the thing about car salesmen. They really believe what they're saying. Those are the ones that sell a lot of cars, Yeah,
that's true.
So, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about all this political stuff. Everybody's getting into Bernie, and my dad called me the other day, Jeff, and he's like, "You need to go down there and vote. You need to go down to the church and vote." And I'm like, I don't think it's really going to matter. I'm going to vote in the big vote, but I don't know who to vote for. I don't really like any of these guys, Jeff. To be honest with you, is that a bad thing? Oh, man, did we lose Jeff?
No, there we
blessed. That scared me. I was like, I politically just pissed Jeff off, Harmon, for the first time.
Not at all. No. What happened was I had to sneeze, and I don't have the coronavirus, but I just had to cough, actually, not sneeze, and I muted the microphone to spare you from the sound. But and I agree. I mean, politics has always been a dirty game, and people tend to overreact. If you go back through history, this is nothing new. I mean, there were times back throughout history where the political scene was just as crazy as it is now. I mean, the riots and crazy stuff. I mean, look at the stuff that went on with Jimmy Hoffa. The human race in general is always a riotous kind of race. It's nothing happens smoothly. I remember in the 60s, my God, when all those riots were going on out on the East Coast, I went out and we visited my grandfather, and we were actually in D.C. in certain areas where it was rioting. And, it's amazing how crazy people get. So this is nothing new. This will pass. What I think, though, is what I've been saying for a long time is no matter what your political preference is, this is a really, really dynamic, powerful, polarizing time for the world. The Saturn-Pluto conjunction, every time it happens, we always see something major follow it. And I think we're still yet to see more coming. Again, we have
like war? Something, you mean like war?
Well, I've always been concerned that at this time that something's going to flare up in the Middle East, particularly this whole situation with Turkey, Syria, Iran, Israel. It's just a hot box. I hope nothing happens. I'm glad we're pulling out of a lot of these places. There's a reason, and again, I always like George Carlin. He really had it right. He said, forget the politicians, you have owners. And we really do. When you think about the forces behind who in the heck could ever have trillions of dollars worth of collateral. So, we're never going to know who these bankers are that are really, truly behind the scenes, behind the Fed. And when we look at the massive amount of debt, and there's no liquidity to ever cash it in, that keeps the Western financial systems going. I think we're seeing some major moves in the world right now to pull away from the globalism direction that we were going back to the nationalistic direction. And proof of that is the amount of money the United States has stuck into its military. It's colossal. And you look at what's happening with even India and Japan. The United States has been really angling ever since Trump's been in. And I think Trump got in not only because of the power of his chart, but also I think the owners wanted him in. And it's ironic that Nikola Tesla, all his documents were picked up by Donald Trump's uncle out of the New York hotel. I don't know if you knew that. I think you knew that, didn't you? Yeah.
But I read Bob Woodward's book on Trump too, and you know what? I like the guy's fire. Look, people think that people, you have to respect people that have a little fire and passion. Sometimes they don't always say the right things. Sometimes they don't always do the right things, but they mean good in their heart. And I think
Trump's got a lot of fire.
And the thing is I don't think he's been totally honest about business and his money and stuff, but he might be just doing that because he's worried about what people think, obviously. So I don't know, man. Like the politics, to me, they're just humans. They get in there and they got all this responsibility. Every country coming at them, asking them about stuff. And I'll tell you what's really worried me about this coronavirus thing. It ain't the virus that bothers me. It's the fact that it could have been weaponized. And if it's weaponized, I got some leaks from some people from Russia saying that they were starting to foot in about war and stuff. Because if another country feels like a bioweapon's been released and they feel like they know who did it, that can cause some major problems for all of us, you know.
There's my point exactly. Why did we do this buildup? Now, we did need to do the buildup. The military was decimated, but I hear that we have really built up. You know, this country has 20 aircraft carriers right now, and they're all nuclear powered. The rest of the world, you'd be lucky if most countries have one. There's only one country that has a nuclear aircraft carrier, and that is France, and it's half the size of the United States. China's aircraft carriers are diesel and gas powered. I mean, they're stopped with camels compared to what the United States has. And they're flying around with lasers and particle beams and stuff that we would, you know, I had to laugh the other night when they were asking in this town hall meeting with Trump, you know, he says, well, we had no ammunition. Now we have more ammunition than we need. Yeah, well, I think they got a little bit more than just ammunition and bullets. It's some very scary stuff. And this, you go back, it's all to the money. And that's where the astrology, to me, really makes it all come full circle, because we are at a crisis point of change. And I actually think it's going to really end up positive, because we have a 240-year Saturn-Jupiter conjunction happening precisely on the winter solstice. This is the one I've been saying about for over a decade, on this year. In other words, the winter solstice of 2020, December 21st of 2020, Saturn and Jupiter join in what we call a new triplicity. Triplicities are the elements, earth, air, fire, and water. So this joins in an air sign. And what does that mean in plain English? Well, I think we're going to see a lot of technologies that have been suppressed and or that haven't been commercially feasible are going to start to become commercially feasible. One of the things I'm hearing, and you're hearing this on the mainstream news, is we're going to start seeing manufacturing coming back to this country, but in a different way, in a much more sophisticated way. Automation's going to be coming in. We're going to need people that run that automation. And you're going to see the gates of the resources of this country continue to be opened further. And why would they be doing that? They have to. China has us in an extremely vulnerable position. The Pacific Rim in general does, because we don't make anything in here anymore. And that's another thing that tells me the first thing Trump did was open up the steel mills. And I hope we aren't, I hope there's no major conflict. I don't think we'll ever see a conflict like World War I or World War II.
I hope not, man, because the weapons they got now, people don't even want to know what they got now.
That's why it happened like that.
Yeah, like they can take out a problem pretty quick and you would never know it happened, I think, or a person, Now, here's a question from the chat. I think it's a legitimate astrological question from Susie G3. She says, do you think that Venus interacting with the conjunction will soften it or make it more favorable?
Well, I'm glad she brought that up. That's good. I don't know if you know this, but we have Venus going retrograde coming right up. That's actually going to happen for us May 12th. And that's an interesting thing she brought up, Venus, because I was about to mention that. There's something known as the inferior and superior conjunctions. The inferior conjunction is very simply Venus retrogrades between the Earth and the Sun. And an outer I can talk here, not the inferior, but the superior. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. The superior conjunction happens on the other side of the sun and the earth. In other words, away from the sun. So this one that happens, the inferior conjunction is the stronger one. It is always the one that was the myth of Quetzalcoatl in the Mayan astrology, and also they knew about it in Greek and Egyptian astrology. And what happens, the metaphor is something happens that is kind of catastrophic. Not that it's the end of the world, because this happens all the time, but events happen that end up having to be righted. And this happens right when the Kalasarpa yogas break in May, and then it'll go retrograde. And of course, Jupiter is going retrograde at the same time. In fact, 3 planets go retrograde right in May as this Kalasarpa yoga is broken. That's Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus. They all go retrograde within 3 or 4 days of each other. So that's some powerful, powerful energies. So the energies that are stirred up between now and spring, you're going to see start to really move forward. And that brings me to another issue, is the United States charts, which we'll get into that in a minute. But I just wanted to finish that
question.
We're
about to come up on a break too. So, but see, you can tell people are getting a little bit more astrologically inclined with this new astrology stuff. But there's a lot of factors too that I'm just kind of learning myself. You got location astrology. You got, well, now you're talking about the United States astrology, like. Man, sure. This stuff is hard, and I guess before we go into the break, I've been trying to explain how astrology works, and I think one guy like Gordon White kind of hit it where he said, hey, look, it's not the fact, like, I can't explain to you how it works, right? I just know that it's a clock, and then we see things that happen on this clock, and that it works, the clock works kind of thing, you know?
I really think if you really back it out to what the ancients said, and I'm not getting any other way than factual, and quantum physicists are beginning to see stuff like this that I've spoken to, particularly guys like Claude Swanson. I really believe there's a celestial court of energies that are working on the souls here on Earth. The Earth is a living, vibrating, spiritual planet where karma plays out. It's a very, very special place. And I always liken astrology more to astronomy, because that's what the ancients called it. They called it astronomy. And astrology kind of was more the viewpoint of a modern interpretation. But some of the older stuff, particularly the Egyptian all the way up into about the 11th or 12th century, they referred to it as astronomy.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, you're totally right about that. We did, and you know what? We have actually had Claude Swanson on the program too. That was a very cool show. And if you guys want to check that out, you can go and listen to any of the archives if you want to do that too. So, yeah,
Claude and I have tipped many a cup of coffee together. I really like Claude. Great respect.
Yeah, man, like his stuff is. It was amazing to listen to him speak about some of this stuff. And yeah, anyways, look, we got to take a break here. I don't want to get caught up in that. But yeah, we'll get back. We'll talk about what Jeff was talking about with the astrology of the United States and more coming up. More Lighting the Void. Stay with us.
Charlton from Metaphorical Archaeology. If you've ever had a traumatic paranormal experience, the effects of it may stay with you for years. Who do you talk to? You can't go to conventional help. What we do is we use emotional freedom techniques or tapping to actually neutralize the effects of that event. Maybe when you tell the story now, your heart races and your palms get sweaty. You don't even want to think about it because you don't know how to neutralize that. That's what EFT tapping does. It neutralizes those emotions. The circuit that was recorded on is gone. The energy flows freely and you're free of it. And that's what emotional freedom is all about. We offer this as a pro bono service, but this is something that I offer because no one, it seems, is helping people with these experiences. If you'd like to reach me, it's really easy. My cell phone is 214-995-3754. Please leave a message. I will get back to you as quickly as possible. Or you can email me
barb.eft@gmail.com. And EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. Reach out to me. It's confidential. This works. You won't believe the results.
Hey, this check is wrong. I worked a holiday and 7 hours of overtime. Not getting paid correctly is a real pain. It could also hurt our boss if our company provides out-of-compliance checks. That's right, construction companies doing business with the government can get fined, or officials of the companies can go to jail if the checks aren't right. It's a law. The Davis-Bacon Act has 30 compliance issues for every check, but there is an easy way for construction companies to be in compliance. EMARS offers Compliant Client, a web-based system that finds and corrects all 30 of the possible out-of-compliance check issues. Users of Compliant Client report an 80% savings in time and money. Running a weekly payroll usually takes about 5 minutes. All 15,000 plus clients of EMARS have never had a legal compliance issue. Plus, they sleep better on check day. Contact EMARS at emarsinc.com or call 480-595-0466.
All right, man, this is Crow 777, and you are listening to The Fringe FM.
Right, me old Chiners. I know it's an ad break, but before you lot shoot off and make yourself a cup of Rosie Lee or whatever else it is you're going to sling down your Gregory Peck, you need to listen to me bubble. If, like me, you found your way to Light in the Void via a downloadable podcast, you might want to take a butcher's at the Fringe FM Wind and Kite. You won't Adam and Eve how many other shows there are or what they rabbit on about. Ancient history, conspiracy, the consciousness, the esoteric, the occult, metaphysics, parapolitical, ufology, technology and spirituality, to name but a few. They got featured hosts like Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Alex Exum, Tim Doyle, Cortana and Gigi, Susanna Ross, the Reverend John Polk, Michael Deacon and J.D. Lewis. You might find yourself listening to the thoughts and theories of the author of The Fish you just finished reading. Or you could pick up the dog and bone, call in and tell everyone your own beliefs or experiences. So do me a favour, before you put on the Ansel or crack open a bottle of vino or roll a joint, go to the Fringe FM and see what you're missing.
From a cave in the depths of your mind, it's Lighting the Void with Joe Root.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you're interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Hey, I'm J.M. DeBoard, and when I want to talk about dreams, I look up my man Joe Root and his show, Lighting the Void.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
Well, I got to tell you, if you wanted to build a case for astrology, there's no better man to talk to about that than our guest tonight, Jeff Harmon, who's explaining to us some of these crazy energies that are going on right now and what's coming in the future. And before the break, he talked about that there is some astrology we need to pay specific attention to that's going to be happening for the United States. So I'll go ahead and let you go on with that, Jeff. Are you there, Jeff? Man, I keep losing Jeff for some reason. I don't know what the deal is, but anyways.
It's just a mute button here. That's all it is.
Are you leaning on the mute button? It's got to be the coffee. It's probably what it is.
Yeah, it's probably coffee, yeah. But no, we're good to go.
Get that triple espresso going, don't you?
Yeah, there you go. Get both eyes wide open. I got my 100-mile coffee. I don't blink for 100 miles. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's going on with the United States? Because I mean, since we live here and all, I think it kind of matters, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I actually looked at Communist China's chart. You know, of course, China goes back potentially thousands of years. But it was the communist regime that came in 1949 that I have a chart for. So you can look at the communist regime, path that's going on right now. And I can see why China's having a tough time. They're actually having a Sarisate, which is Saturn's right over the moon. Now, back to the United States, what does that mean? Well, this only happens once about every 28 and a half years is a Saturn conjunct moon. It's the synodic cycle of Saturn around the solar system. It's approximately 28 to 28 and a half years. So Communist China has this Saturn moon conjunction, which is always heavy duty stuff, always. And it's very karmic. And yet we have the United States for the first time ever about to have a Pluto return. Now, I know a lot of people listening say, yeah, but Pluto's not a planet anymore. And I have to say, my observation of Pluto is very much in alignment with it is a very powerful force. I'm just a student of astrology. I always look at what matters, what can I actually measure, and what do people give me feedback on. And I can tell you Pluto has a huge effect. Well, the United States just had for the first time in 12 years, Jupiter cross its ascendant. Now, people might say, well, what does that mean? That happened about a year and a half ago. That means expansion. Well, that's the very thing we were just talking about. Huge expansion in the military. We're now, for the first time in many, many years, turning the resources back on. Whether you like Trump or hate Trump, the bottom line is I think the owners behind the scene have said, we got to open this place back up for business. And I've heard rumors that they're very concerned in the military that China is growing so rapidly militarily that they're very concerned that we keep the military might that we have on the seas. So the astrology shows with Saturn over China's moon, this would be a very challenging time for them. And the United States is showing a time when it's really going to start to flex its muscles again. I think we're going to see a technology revolution, not that it hasn't already been happening, but again, this Saturn-Jupiter conjunction is coming in that I mentioned earlier is happening in the United States chart's second house. So what does that mean? Well, again, that's resources. That's turning, instead of becoming a service economy where all our jobs are shipped overseas, not that won't continue to some degree, but I think we're going to now see a lot of automated manufacturing, agriculture, and mineral excavation here, as well as oil and natural gas really come back online. It has been already the last couple of years. I think that's going to continue to grow, and I think we're going to see technologies really start to flourish here in a lot of ways, and that's a big transformation for this country.
No, good. Expansion is always a good thing, right? It definitely is. But I got to tell you, probably since October, people, like individuals, especially, and I guess their water elements have been going through a lot. I mean, have you noticed that lately? Like I have, for sure. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm not the pro astrologer here.
What do you mean though by that? By water elements?
Well, it's kind of like there's been a lot of so back in through October through November and December, there was a lot of like relationship stuff happening to people, where people were having to make big changes or break cycles, those kind of things. I mean, it was happening all over the place.
That's the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. See, the Saturn-Jupiter, too. See, and I know people listening will go, what is he talking about, Saturn-Pluto or Saturn-Jupiter? I'm talking about them both, because this is the first time in a long, long time these have lined up like this. These are very powerful astrological energies, or astronomical, if you want to say it that way. Saturn and Pluto only mix up somewhere between 35 and 40 years. And if we go back through history, I mean, the Roman Empire actually broke up officially on one of these conjunctions way, way back in the 5th century. So that's kind of when it really broke up. And a good example was World War I broke out right after the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in 1914. And the next cycle it ended World War II and it began the Cold War. The next cycle, Nixon took us off the gold standard and the Soviet Union was getting ready to collapse. And of course, in the early 80s, that's what happened. So these are big, wide cycles that happen. The last time we had a major shift with Saturn and Jupiter, which those two join every 20 years. And anyone listening, if you follow astrology, you'll know, hey, Saturn and Jupiter join every 20 years approximately. And that's true. But see, these are called great conjunctions and mutation conjunctions. And this goes all the way back to literally like the flood of Noah. And many astrologers have tried to tie these exactly in. I just use what we call the averages. And about every 1,000 years, there's a great conjunction where they join in Aries, and then every approximately 240 years, we have what we call subconjunctions, referred to as mutations. Well, the last major conjunction we had was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. The next one we have is coming right up, the winter solstice of 2020. And what does this mean? It means psychologically or even spiritually, a lot of forces come in to alter the world. Things start heading in new directions. I think in the next decade or 20 years, it's going to be like the Jetsons, literally. I think we're going to see technologies that are going to absolutely blow our minds in genetics, travel, science, medicine, communications. We ain't seen nothing yet. And the infrastructure is there to make it happen.
Okay. Yeah, so it's not all about. I've been getting a lot of doom and gloom from people. That's all. It's good to hear some of this stuff.
Doom and gloom. There's always doom and gloom.
Yeah. But Saturn and Pluto, I think people get the idea of like those are the dark, deep planets, and it's like I get it.
Big changes happen. And this is the thing. This is what I'm saying with China and the United States. This decoupling, and look what also is happening for the first time in almost 20 years. We're getting out of Afghanistan. A lot of, and I think we're about ready to see a major global currency shift. That's what I think. Many people have been predicting this for a long, long time. I think. I can't pin it down, but I would say it's pretty close. I would say the astrology or astronomy shows we are right around the corner. And I've been hearing this where the Fed and the people behind the Feds are going to go to a new valuation. They're going to start putting it on a standard of either blockchain or some form of blockchain like cryptocurrency, but like a blockchain form of it. And it's going to be also coupled with the valuation of natural resources, combined possibly with the gold standard. Many people have predicted, gold's going to go to $40,000 an ounce, and it probably would have to if we were going to collateralize the dollar. And again, I'm not a currency expert, but this is murmurings that I've been hearing from actually people who are very knowledgeable and are either working in and around the White House or the Fed, that these things have been bantered about for quite a while, and they're about to happen sooner or later. And the astrology would support that.
All right, cool. That's cool. So, I'm not really afraid of a global standard, not like that. A lot of people might be, but I'm not. Now,
we may not even notice it that much because I'm talking what I think they're going to do, and Trump has actually said this, is that the playing field is not fair. Our dollar is so superior to the buying power of other currencies. And if we're actually going to see it balance out more and still be the de facto currency, something like that has to happen.
Now, what about like from a spiritual level, like end times thing? We still got, because people, and maybe it's just my paranoia, but I feel like time's speeding up. Art Bell used to talk about the quickening. There's still stuff that makes me think that we're kind of coming to the end times. But is there really such an end times thing, or is that more just like cycles? Is all this stuff just really about cycles? Because last night I was talking to a guest where we were talking about catastrophic events, right? And, these are things like solar flare-ups, like Robert Schoch talks about, or even things like Randall Carlson talks about, where there's some type of flood or deluge, And the specific thing that worried me was how fast the North Pole had shifted recently. And I kind of worry about that stuff.
The magnetics, yes, you bet. There's been for a long time people saying we are near a pole shift. I can't say. The thing I get, for years, I'll never forget. I think it was 1977. I walked out of a theater with a friend of mine. His dad owned it, and we watched the late great Planet Earth, and that had Orson Welles in it. And, of course, Orson Welles' thundering voice, doing the quatrains of Nostradamus. And when we walked out of the theater, we said, "Oh my God, we're not going to live past 1985." Axis tips. There's going to be hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes off the Richter scale. Nuclear holocaust. I mean, it was all in there. If anybody ever wants to go find that movie, The Late Great Planet Earth, Orson Welles actually narrated it. I mean, you would think, you weren't going to live another 10 minutes. And look at what it is. I mean, that was 40 years ago. It was 43 years ago. That was 1977. So think about that. Fear, and I'm not saying catastrophe isn't happening. What I see happening right now is we are in a grand solar minimum. And the astrology combined with what I've heard from really knowledgeable scientists and the grand solar minimum people, I think have it right. I think we're at a minimum of solar flares, and it's actually really affecting the magnetosphere of not only the solar system, but of this planet. And the weather really changes. Axis tip stuff is pretty big. It certainly could happen. I haven't looked into that. I actually could right now. Let's see. Let's do that. Let's do that on Joe Roop Show. Let's see.
Right now, yeah. Live on Joe Roop Show. Yeah.
Live. Bing bong. Yes. Where were you when this show was number one? Just like George Carlin used to say.
Right.
So,
well, the station did get number 4 in paranormal radio, like on radio online. That's pretty good.
I'm actually doing what we call an interrogation chart, which is literally just casting a chart and asking a question. And a lot of people know it in modern astrology as horary. That's the Latinized term. World events are always... I would tend to say I'm not seeing a major axis tip by virtue of this chart. I could be wrong. I could be reading it wrong, but the angles are fixed. When the angles are fixed in the chart, that usually means stability. That's one sign of stability. Secondly, the Lord of the Ascendant, which is the people or us collectively right now, and the world at large would be the 10th. I'm not seeing it. I see weather patterns crazy. The political scene looks really nuts.
Yeah, that's kind of a given, right?
I think Trump's going to win. I really do. That's my prediction. They're going to Biden will just barely make that's where it's leaning right now. And the polls show the same exact thing, that Biden's likely to get the nomination. It'll be tight. It'll be, Bernie's going to be real close. He's really pushing Minnesota right now to get in there. And, there's like 125 delegates for Minnesota. It's going to be close.
He's just too damn angry for me. You ever see him smile about anything?
Well, Bernie actually, believe it or not, I looked at all the candidates' charts, and Bernie has, believe it or not, a pretty strong chart. I can see why he's always been a contender. He may not win, but he's always been a contender. The problem with Bernie is he doesn't have the progressions going on that make him really happen. He's close, but not quite there. Bernie has in Vedic astrology Sun in Leo in the 10th house, which is the house of career. So no matter what, he's always had a somewhat appeal. He's been likable. He has an appealing quality to him, whether or not you agree with his socialism or not. But I would say the chart shows why he'd have that. But doesn't look like Bernie's in a moon. Am I right here? Bernie is, where is he? Yeah, Bernie is in a Jupiter Dasha, actually. So, see, that's why he's so angry? But Bernie was born with Moon conjunct Mars. it's right conjunct Mars. That's why he's always got that woo, 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 woo. You know, he's always out there. So some people
that's a good impression, man. Like,
yeah, but he's very forceful, but he has a quality that is redeemable about him. Even though I don't like his policies too much, but he certainly, I can see why his chart has what it has. And Biden's a weird dude, man. I mean, like him or hate him, he's got Mars and Mercury in the 12th house. There's one interesting thing about Biden. He's got Jupiter in the 9th, and that's why he always comes off like kind of this sweet, kind of lackadaisical, you know, kind of guy. He's just got that quality to him. But he, again,
seems like he's got gas all the time or something. I don't, maybe. I don't know.
Too easily. He doesn't seem vital, and that's what the chart would show. He's got Saturn transiting 7th from his moon, and that's not a good omen for winning. I think he's going to really make a run for it, but my prediction is Trump is going to definitely take the White House again.
Wait, there's an omen for winning? I need to see what mine is. Are you talking about like Charlie Sheen type of winning or just actual winning?
Well, I'm talking actual winning. He doesn't have the strength here in the chart to really go the distance. He's right at the end of a Jupiter period in Vedic astrology. And the problem is he's likely, and I can tell you, this thing with his son in Ukraine, as much as they're going to try and block it, I think this is going to come to fore. I really do. I think this Durham thing, I've been saying this for a long time because everybody says, oh, nothing happens. Nobody gets indicted. You know, Hillary's about to get deposed. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Really? No, honestly, I don't keep up with politics.
Hillary Clinton, she's trying to block it, but I think they're going to depose her. And they were able to get that pushed through. And I think there's trouble brewing here. I've been saying it a long time. It's not going to be easy to get these guys, but I think it's coming. This Durham is probably going to be a much more dangerous situation for that side than they realize, because Durham has been given the power of criminal indictments. So he doesn't have to run around and get committees to research. Criminal indictments are pretty serious. And that means, you know, when you got that kind of power, when it comes down, it'll come down swift and fast. And if it's anything like I've seen the feds work, they take their time. They're not in a big hurry. And when they come down, you're pretty much toast. And I'd be surprised if Biden doesn't, based on what I see here, Biden's got Saturn opposing his moon this year, all year, and it doesn't bode well for actually winning. You know, he might pull off the. It looks like it's going to eke his way on the winning the primary for the Democratic, but I don't think he's gonna. I personally think Trump's going to go through this election like a freight train through a wet paper bag. That's what I think.
Oh yeah, it's a given. Everybody knows he's going to get another 4 years, but you know it'll all come to a head. Then we'll have another big race again. I think honestly, I think it all balances out. You know, like I'm not really a Republican or Democrat or anything like that, but.
Oh, I get hate mail if I say anything good about Donald Trump, and I'm just looking at his chart. His chart mirrors reality. That's the efficacy of Vedic astrology. It's really amazing, and it supports that we're really spiritual beings. A lot of modern astrologers, everyone knows their sun sign, and as you found, Joe, your sun sign is usually not the same in Vedic astrology because it's using a sidereal zodiac, and what's so powerful about Vedic astrology is it really, in my opinion, shows the path of the soul, and it really supports and shows free will. Trump's chart is so accurate, it's creepy. He's got Mars in the ascendant. This is a guy who likes duking it out. He loves a fight. He absolutely enjoys it. He's got Mars in the ascendant, and it's what we call Raj Yoga. Raj Yoga means kingly union. More importantly, Trump has the ruler of his ascendant in the 10th house of career. And he was born, Trump's another one, he was born just after a Kalasarpa Yoga. The moon broke it. See, the same pattern was going on when Donald Trump was born. Donald Trump was born in 1946. So this happens a lot. About every 18 years, this happens. In fact, interestingly enough, when you go back, that cycle started for Donald Trump right before he was born, the Kalasarpa Yogas, when Hiroshima, the bomb was dropped in 1945. Because Donald Trump was born just about a year later. Yeah, you bet it's interesting. In fact, 9/11 happened on one of these cycles. If you go back even further, I mean, it just keeps going on and on and on. So these are very, very, in fact, JFK in 1963 was killed during one of these cycles. That one I remember. I was just a little kid standing in the lawn, and I'll never forget that. John F. Kennedy was just killed today in Daley Plaza.
Yeah, that's a big moment in history. That's a huge moment in history.
Yeah. My uncle and my dad were cleaning out the leaves in the gutters, and I'll never forget that little AM radio blasting away. But yeah, I mean, these are traumatic times, and we're in them right now. And this doesn't mean the world's going to end, but for some people, it feels like it. It's a very dramatic time, and I feel it in my life. Everyone I speak to feels it. It's a very, very powerful time. Money is tight for a lot of people right now. I think this coronavirus has really scared the hell out of everybody.
Well, that's because they're making sure that we get scared. I mean, that's
a lot of it. Yep.
Somebody else died. Ding, 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 ding. Somebody else died. I mean, imagine if they did that, breaking news. Somebody else died every time somebody actually just died.
Yeah.
But we would all be just sitting in the house going, "Oh God, we're going to die any minute now." You know what I'm saying?
We're all going to die anyhow. Nobody gets out of this place in the body. I don't think anybody dies. That's my personal opinion. One of the things I love is some of the ancient Vedantic, Egyptian, Chaldean, and many ancient texts. They all specifically say we are here as spiritual beings. We're not our astrology. We got our astrology based on the karmic path that we are here to live and experience, which is completely backwards from modern astrology.
Yeah, you're right. That is, I do want to talk a little bit more about that too. We're at the top of the hour, but we get that question a lot. Which astrology should I follow? Sidereal, Eastern, Western? Jeff's got pretty good answers for that. All that and more coming up after these messages. Also, the Rogie Report's coming up as well. JeffHarmon.com is the website you go to for reference. And if you want a personal reading, you can also hit him up there. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Hey, this is No Way Jose, a Northern California Piscean stuck in the Arizona desert. I'm a Void Walker, and I got the shoes to prove it. So what do I do when my soul yearns to delve deep into the realm of the unknown? I aim my satellite straight into the night sky and catch a smooth ride on the KTLK-DB radio waves. I tune into Lighting the Void with Joe Root on The Fringe FM.
Joe, Lighting the Void is the best show on the planet. This is Barney, your friend from Facebook. Thank you and all the crew for all you do. Namaste, my friend.
This is Macon from the foothills of North Carolina, and I am a Void Walker.
G'day, Void Walkers. This is Lily from down under Australia. The world may be small, but the enigma is greater. So let your curiosity take you for a journey with Joe Root.
Hey, this is Fee, coming in from Central Maryland. And I am a Void Walker.
This is Kevin Doherty, a beginner Void Walker. I'm from Vancouver, BC. I know a little about a lot, and as Leonard Skinner said, I'll guess the rest. I learned a lot from Mr. Root and the show, and heard it from the beginning. I knew right then he was going to be a new Art Bell. Thanks for all your shows, and keep it up.
Hey, this is Derek from Mass, a.k.a. the Night Stalker, and I'm a Void Walker.
This is Mark from Chicago, and I walk the void to ascertain what is consciousness.
My name is Jared Johnson, and I'm from Humboldt County, California. I do not know all of the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm a Void Walker. Thanks, Joe Root.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to The Fringe FM.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Have you ever seen an ad or banner which brought you a feeling that someone is reading your mind or even listening to your conversations? Your online data is being used against you. Surfshark is a VPN service that makes online privacy protection easy and attainable. You can use it on as many devices as you'd like simultaneously. Surfshark encrypts all internet traffic sent to and from your devices and ensures that your IP address remains hidden. The VPN service that we use at UFO Seekers, plus 1 month free for $1.99 a month. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling. The ground shook. You could hear rushing water. And then, history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails. Stores with their shelves stripped bare. ATMs can't operate. Deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand 3 truths. FEMA is broke. The system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25 years shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in 1 business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
Hey, Fringe listeners, this is Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange Radio, asking you to join us live Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on The Fringe FM. Visit BeyondTheStrange.com for links to chat, social media, and schedules of the show. And remember, always stay strange. Hasta.
This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie. Was Earth originally a water world? Geologists have studied the 3.2 billion-year-old crust in Australia and have utilized the rock data to build a model of ancient seawater. The model indicates that the early Earth could have been a water world with submerged continents. Geologists Benjamin Johnson and Boswell Wing wrote in a paper published online by the journal Nature Geoscience. And they wrote, an early Earth without emergent continents may have resembled a water world, providing an important environmental constraint to the origin and evolution of life on Earth, as well as the possibility of existence elsewhere. Johnson and Wing suggested 2 possible ways. Water cycling through the ancient ocean crust was different than today's seawater, with a lot more high-temperature interactions, which could have enriched the ocean with heavy isotopes of oxygen. Or water cycling from the continental rock could have reduced the percentage of heavy isotopes in the water. A new study from the University of California, Berkeley, examines YouTube's efforts to limit the spread of conspiracy theories on its site. In January of 2019, YouTube said it would limit the spread of videos that could misinform users in harmful ways. Recently, YouTube has updated their algorithms so that videos with conspiracy-related topics are recommended less. The researchers found that YouTube has nearly eradicated some conspiracy theories from its recommendation, including theories such as flat Earth and 9/11. In June of last year, YouTube said the amount of time people spent watching such videos from its recommendations had dropped by 50%. The researchers argue these findings suggest that YouTube has decided which types of misinformation it would allow and which types it would not allow. Hani Farid, a computer science professor at the University of California, Berkeley, and co-author of the study, said, "It's a technical problem, but really, at the end of the day, it's also a policy problem." Flat Earth enthusiast Nathan Thompson has been a prominent advocate for the conspiracy theory. He broadcasted live on YouTube as he walked up to a fence at a school in Greenville, South Carolina, and began shouting at children about Flat Earth. In this clip, you can hear him speak to the students.
Hey guys, check this out real quick. Space is fake. You're not on a spinning ball.
School officials reported the incident to the police, and Thompson was later arrested for public disorderly conduct. Thompson said he used his First Amendment rights to tell those kids that large bodies of water do not curve. This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie.
Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal, there's a show called Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. Hear me live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern on the Fringe FM.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
You are listening to Lighting the Void Radio, and I'm your host, Joe Roop. It is Friday night as we head on into the weekend with astrologer Jeff Harmon. JeffHarmon.com is the website. And, I wanted to mention real quick that your wife, Camille, she's been killing it, man, and acting. Every time I turn around, she's got a new gig going up, Jeff. You guys are young. You and I have these discussions about magic a lot. You guys aren't doing magic, are you?
No.
Or is she just that dang talented?
No, she's got some really good cycles going on right now. She's out there pushing it. So
yeah. Do you use astrology to like predict that kind of thing too, though? You say now's the time to go do an audition, right, or something?
Yeah, well, what I find is really accurate about astrology, and this is where I love helping people, is you can really see phases and cycles that are good for people and ones that are more challenging. And, what you can do with this information is you can really kind of maybe gauge yourself more accurately. When you see a life peak coming, you can really prepare for it, whether it's education or your skill sets, whatever you're trying to do. You can really see when peaks are coming, and you can see when the hard times are coming. And there's value to that too, because, I've got a lot of clients who are in businesses or marriages or what have you. And it's really valuable to say, hey, this is a challenging time, but there's also a reason for it. There's a cleansing going on, or there might be some karmic energies that are releasing that are very old. And you also see when life peaks are coming. And I think it gauges things. It's like the military. The more knowledge you have, any business person will tell you that, the probably more intelligently you're going to operate. That's why I don't believe astrology predicts the future. I believe we do. But I think because we have free will, because I've seen people blow opportunities that could really be good by doing stupid things. If they'd have been more aware that this is really a peak cycle in their life, they may have taken better care of it, or maybe applied themselves more. You see what I'm saying? And I've also seen people who've really been sad and suicidal in certain situations. And it's always been pleasing to me to say, hey, this is going to pass. It's going on now, but look at where you're going to be a year or two from now. And the charts are kind of eerie how accurate they are. It really does show the phases. By the way, I wanted to mention, because I want to help promote your show, Joe, if anybody wants a reading, because it's 2020, and you mentioned Joe Roop's show, we'll give them 20% off on a reading.
Wow. Thank you, man. That's fantastic. You're the upgrade too. It's a good time to get a reading from Jeff, especially. I still have mine, the recording, the session that you go through, and he goes through all of it. If you do like the regular reading, you're going to get your Western, your Eastern, even Kabbalistic astrology. Like, you did a lot of stuff for me, man. It was really impressive.
Yeah, the location astrology is really cool too. Everybody loves that, where you can see the cycles that are going through where you live, whether you're born or you move to another location. So location astrology is really fascinating. You can actually see progressions and transits. And I've often had people say to me, geez, I've always had a hard time in this particular location. And the astrology can really point to why that is.
Yeah, I got to get out of here, man. I got a freaking Saturn line where I'm at. You remember that? Like, I gotta go to the beach, either a desert or beaches. Everybody knows that about me, though. Like, I'm ready to get out of these woods, man. Yeah. But here I've been working out a lot of stuff in my life, though, too.
Yeah, you do. I haven't looked at your chart for a while, but we got to do that, Joe.
Right next to a Saturn line. People ask me about that, too. Like, what does that got to do with anything, or what does that even mean? Well, Saturn has a double-edged sword. It often makes you work hard and feel like you're always dragging a box of rocks up the hill. But on the other hand, there's a lot of virtue to Saturn. What you get, you keep. You slow and steady grow. Like, look at how far you're growing. Look at how much better your show is now. You're much, you really got this professional now. You've got all kinds of people working with you. And, I noticed booking the show tonight. It was really great. And so, you're slowly growing. So no matter where you go, we always take us with us, so location astrology is great, but I also say understanding where you're at can sometimes maximize, or you understand better what's happening for you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's good. So you're saying, like, because I like growth, right? So let's say I got a Saturn line, and even if I moved, I don't know, Nevada or something, I would probably still grow, but maybe at a different rate, or the energies maybe wouldn't be there. I think that's what people want to know, like, are they still there? But if you're born there, then of course, it's still there, I think.
It is, but also understanding what's there, even if you're living in your birthplace, is really unique because it's a different way. Like, I noticed when I looked at my birth location, it gave me a lot of insights. And when I started understanding that dynamic, I operated a lot different. I understood things. I become less reactive. And you can take a negative. It's just like martial arts. You can take a negative and make it work for you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
So here, I'm actually been working at getting your chart up. I'm on a different computer tonight, so I had to fish you out of a different archive because I'm just, but I was going to take a quickie car wash.
That was pretty impressive, too, because I remember when I was doing the reading with you, and you were like, let me pull your chart up, and you had, all of my old records and stuff, so you could keep up with everything. Yeah. That was really cool.
Yeah. Yep. See, you were born with Mars and Saturn right in the ascendant. So what does that mean? In location astrology, you're going to have it right there because you're living, you live right in the Little Rock area, right?
Yeah. Yep.
As long as you continue to live there. See, that's what's interesting about location astrology. But you also have the moon in the midheaven, and that's your saving grace. You have the node and the moon in the midheaven. So that helps you a lot.
Is that a good luck thing?
It's really good for notoriety. The more you work hard, the more notoriety you're going to get.
Fantastic. See, you guys,
it gives you tenacity too.
Yeah, well, I always believed in that. Like, you just keep going no matter what. You keep doing your thing. The show must go on, and it must get better, always.
On. That's right, exactly. I'm actually putting you in the other computer program right now. I use several programs, and it's so cool. When I started in astrology, it was BC, before computers, and it is so amazing what you can get done with computers today. It's quite amazing, the amount of calculations. Problem with computers are they're stupid. You have to set them up the right way, and once you do, they're really a formidable tool. I mean, I remember casting charts by hand. I always have a a story I like to tell. I have the blessing of working with some really amazing astrologers. One of the guys was from India, and he said we used to do astrology all the time. And Chakravarti was another one I worked with, I don't know if anybody's heard of him, but was a really famous astrologer. He and Yogi Bhajan had come over here in the 60s and 70s. In fact, Chakravarti was the one who actually created the name Vedic astrology. It was never called that before him. He coined that phrase, and he just passed away here, I think about a year or two ago. But I always enjoyed going to dinner with him, and he was a really sweet guy. Born in India, his father was an astrologer, his grandfather was an astrologer, and that's often the case, is they come from a lineage of astrologers, and these traditions are handed down. But the cool thing was, they would always say to me, Jeff, you must always cast chart by hand, because you have to draw the chart out by hand, and you'd get something called a panchanga, which Western astrologers will know as an ephemeris. That tells you where all the planets are, right? And back in the 1600s, my God, the court astrologer had a guy running outside with an astrolabe, taking the shadow of the sun, and then they'd trot back in, and then they'd draw the chart, right, and put all the planets in, color in all the houses, put all the degrees in minutes and seconds, and then they'd start delineating. By the time you were done, it was 30 minutes. And if you made one mathematical mistake, you had a wrong chart. So these guys got really good at this stuff. So in the 90s,
that's what you're holding in your hand in your picture, right? That's an astrolabe. The picture we put up?
That's exactly right, yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly right. And there were different plates for different latitudes. Like if you were in England, or you were in France, or you were in Italy, or you were in Egypt, you would have a different set of plates for that latitude. And it would tell you the trajectory. You would rotate it, and it would tell you right where the planets were. So it was really cool. It's actually pretty damn accurate, too. I have to say that. There were studies done at how accurate were the ancient astrologers, and they're pretty tight. I mean, they were within like 30 minutes of longitude on a lot of those calculations. They weren't exact, but they were pretty, they were good enough to get the job done. But anyways, back to this story. So I come into this ashram with one of my teachers, and I said, look, I got the first Vedic astrology program that actually really works well. And I cast a chart, and he goes, oh my God. He goes, that's amazing. Because I want a copy of that. I said, no, grasshopper, you must always cast chart by hand. And he starts laughing. He goes, no, I want a copy of that. I says, yes, you do. Because we were able to cast charts and do work so much faster with computers. It's a funny story.
That is pretty cool, though. I want to figure out how to use one of those. Like, can you still buy astrolabes? Like, can I use? I'm sure you can. You can order one. It's probably not even worth it, though, is it?
It's an arduous task, because it's cool. You can not only use it for casting charts, but you can actually use it to see how high a building is, like how high a wall or a tree or something is. There's a way you calculate it. There's a whole set of different parameters, which is actually kind of cool. Today we shoot a laser up there and go, it's 20 feet high.
Yeah.
This actually gets you within, you would take the length that you were away from the building, and you would match the shadow, and you take the height of the individual, or better yet, the height of the labe, and you could actually calculate really close, like within probably, I'd say, an inch of accuracy, the height of a building.
Now, I asked you a question before the break, and I don't want it to slip my mind before I finish, my thought on that too, is people are asking me about this, Western, Eastern. I feel like my Western chart's really accurate, but then sometimes, I look at my Eastern chart and I'm like, I don't know. When I'm, there's like Western sidereal, and I'm not understanding what do you call it?
It's a great question, Joe. It's a great question. I'll tell you why. Well, here's the answer to that. They both are. See, sidereal astrology is kind of a misnomer, because what it really is it's the position of the solar system around the central sun. Excuse me. And what happens, it's called the precession of the equinoxes. So it moves about 1 degree every 72 years. You understand? So, and it's interesting because that actually matches the 72 angels that are in the firmament of the Bible called Exodus. Excuse me. I had to clear my throat there, and I don't want to use the mute button.
No, it's fine.
So the precession of the equinoxes is the solar system going around our central sun, which happens approximately 25,700 and something years. And there's a lot of dispute about that. Some say, no, it's 27,800 and blah, blah, blah. Let's just keep this simple. So the tropical zodiac is the yearly cycles that the Earth goes through from the weather, and also, you could say, the cycles of the Earth, which is very, very accurate. And Vedic astrology, a lot of people may not know this, Vedic astrology actually has a branch called Tajika, which is a version of tropical. So Vedic astrology is very advanced. And again, Vedic is a pop term. Its original name was called Jyotisha, which means the science of the light of the soul. And then there's branches inside of that. There's the Parashara method or Parashara method, which was named after Maharishi Parashara. And then there's Jaimini after Maharishi Jaimini. And the Tajika, there's so many sacred texts that refer to these. And they knew darn well that there was a tropical system, a sidereal system, and more importantly, a lunar system. And a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people probably do if they study Vedic astrology. There's 27 lunar mansions that surround the Earth through the moon's trajectory every month. And those are magical. There's actually 108 divisions to that zodiac. I always joke around with the astronomers that, no matter how much they polish the lenses on their telescope, they're not going to see that zodiac either. But it surrounds the Earth, and it's believed that the soul passes through the spiritual sphere of the moon right before the soul is permanently tied into the body at first breath. And I believe that that's true. I've actually witnessed that with my son being born. So I say I use them all because I think they're all accurate. And that's the mystery, is understanding the measurement tools. It's kind of like working on something. If you're going to use a metric wrench on a metric bolt, it works. If you use a standard wrench on a standard bolt, that works too. It's all a matter of how you apply the techniques. Fascinating stuff.
All right. So then it all can be accurate. And if you look at it, if you apply the techniques properly, it's just reading energies, become understanding a different thing. But you did tell me about some of the Indian astrology that was super accurate. And I think, what was it called? It was called Jyotish astrology. And that's what you said was really like the super accurate stuff. And you were right. I tried to study that.
Main branch of it. It's the main branch of Vedic astrology. It's kind of like the umbrella, if you will. Jyotisha means the science of the light of the soul. And under that heading, there's Nadi astrology, there's Tajika, there's Parashara, there's the Jaimini, there's also Prashna. Prashna is divinational. You don't need a birth chart, just cast a chart. And then you have Muhurta, which is electional, which picking auspicious times to get married, to sell real estate, etc. So there's a lot of branches to it.
How real is this Mercury retrograde thing? Do we really put more into it than, like it seems like every now and then everybody's like, it's Mercury retrograde. It feels like it's Mercury retrograde all the time.
It's very significant. All the planets go retrograde except the sun and the moon. Every single planet goes retrograde every year. Not every year. Mars and Venus are the two wild cards. They go retrograde about every 2 years, give or take, year and a half, 2 years. But all the planets go retrograde except the sun and the moon. And there's a lot, too, when they go retrograde. Things I find if you're getting, here's a great story, I'll tell you. I had a friend of mine, she was getting married. And she said, I did my chart and we're going to get married on this day. And I got invited to the wedding. And I do a lot of wedding elections, meaning picking auspicious times for people to get married. And I've had a really good success rate with that. And because it's a contract. So the eastern horizon represents either bride or groom, and the western horizon represents the other partner, whoever that is. And you want them to be in harmony by geometric aspect, and you definitely want the moon to be in good. Harmony means like a trine or a conjunction or a sextile. And what happened was I got invited to the wedding, and I'm sitting in the audience with Camille, and I'm going, I hope she knows, but she picked a Mercury going to a trine to Jupiter, but before it gets there, it's going to go retrograde. And the funny thing was they got married and it was a great ceremony. And then the husband, who was a friend of mine, called me up. He said, I don't know what the hell happened. He says, she went to Europe and she called me up from France and said, I want you out of that damn house by the time I get home. She changed her mind. I want a divorce. And that's what happens is Mercury went retrograde in this case. Now, that's just Mercury. Mercury tends to rule communications, logic, mechanical things, and also how we communicate with one another. And Mercury is different every time it goes retrograde. It goes retrograde 3 times a year. It's been doing it since the beginning of time, and it's going to do it till the end of time. And I always observe it. It'll happen differently for everyone because it depends on the aspects it makes to your natal chart. It also has 3 phases to it. There's what we call the Occidental phase, kind of like Occidental Petroleum. I think those guys don't do astrology. So Occidental means it sets after the sun. That's the first phase of Mercury retrograde. Every time it'll do this. And then it goes into the sun, which is called combustion. And then the final phase is what we call Oriental phase. It now goes, in fact, that's where Mercury is right now. Mercury is now in its final Oriental phase. It's elongating out from the sun. It'll go retrograde on the 9th of this month. It stations and then goes direct. So yes, I do find these things are amazing. Like March 9th Pacific time, it's going to go direct right around, I think, about 10 to 9 or 8:48 p.m. And you can calculate that if you're Central Time or Eastern Time, different. But you can feel it. You really can. This was an intense one. In fact, the whole Corona thing broke out right when that happened.
Interesting.
That wasn't happening before. And that's not to say every time Mercury retrograde goes, retrograde, something bad's going to happen. It's called confluence. We just happen to have these Kalasarpa yogas kicking in right when Mercury was going retrograde.
Fascinating. So okay, so there
exacerbates things.
Yeah, I'm just saying, we blame. I'm not going to say we blame it, man. And everything goes wrong during Mercury retrograde. Now it's becoming the fall guy for everything that happens bad. It's like, it's Mercury retrograde, that kind of thing.
So use it as a positive. I always make it a routine to back up my data, retrace things, rethink things, recalculate. It has its virtue. Like if you got to change oil in the car, all that kind of stuff, or back up your data, get communications going with something that hasn't been good. Oftentimes, Mercury retrograde has a positive effect that starts off often chaotic and maybe kind of confusing, but ends up ironing things out.
So it's the time to work things out. Like what you hear a lot about is don't make any major decisions during Mercury retrograde. That's what everybody says.
I always caution people to do anything when their signifactor in an election is retrograde. Like I do a lot of real estate elections where people say, God, I've had the house on the market for, 6 months and nothing's happening. The realtor's not getting any action. So what I'll do is I'll say, okay, break the contract, or when it runs out, call me. And then I'll come up with a good time to put it on the market. And that one, the report card's in on. And every time I do, they usually sell the thing. And I've had some really challenging situations, like people in short sales, or they were, in foreclosure and they had to sell it. And we got it sold. I had one lady, she literally had it on the market for 4 years. And she says, I don't know why. It's just nobody's interested. I said, get it off the market. I actually looked at the time she put it on. It was horrible. And I said, just wait and put the sign out right at this time, get the realtor to, upload the files. She sold the damn thing in 3 or 4 weeks. She said, I had more people looking at this place in 2 weeks than I had in 4 years. I said, I know, it's amazing. And so again, the signifactors, meaning the planets ruling the buyer, the seller, the home, have to be direct. If any of them go retrograde, they'll change their mind and back out of the deal.
Interesting. So there you go. Yeah. All you guys have been asking me those questions about Mercury retrograde, that ought to give you some good ideas about what to do. We're at the bottom of the hour here with Jeff Harmon. You can call in now if you want, 1-800-588-0335. We'll be right back after these messages.
is Rev Dan Lopez from Spiritual Warrior Today Radio, and you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
OMG! People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to getthetea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hi, this is David Oman with HouseAtTheEndOfTheDrive.com. You're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of The Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Hi, this is Kronox from Belgium, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Alex Exum.
This is Alex Exum of the Exum Experience in Live Talk, where we discuss current events, society, and culture. My shows are based in actuality, actual existence, contrasted with what was intended, expected, or believed. You can listen to me live Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 7 p.m. only on KTLK, The Fringe FM.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
This is Reverend John M. Polk, and you are listening to KTLK Digital Broadcasting right here on thefringe.fm.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. The phone lines are open. It's 1-800-588-0335. Friday night open lines with our co-host Jeff Harmon. And we're talking all things astrology, energy, metaphysical, spiritual, and esoteric. And we've been talking with Jeff since the beginning of Lighting the Void. And it's never been a boring show. I can guarantee that. And we got our first caller here that wants to ask Jeff a question from 510 area code. Who are we speaking with?
This is Josh. Hey, Joe. How you doing?
Hey, man. Hey, brother. What's on your mind?
Long time. So I had a question for Jeff about my chart, and I wanted to ask him a quick question about the world after, if that's okay, in general.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Short. So Jeff, I had my chart done by somebody who's, kind of a dabbler in astrology, and, I'd like to use your services at some point when I got a little bit more funds. But she said that there was something really striking about how the Saturn-Pluto conjunction was within 1 degree of my South Node, saying that that's some sort of lineup with my karma. What would that indicate generally?
Well, the South Node is also known as Ketu in Vedic astrology. Yeah, that's a big deal. See, and, Joe and I were just talking on the break. He had a very powerful event happen in his life. He had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction happen exactly on the opposition of his moon. So in your case on the node, you bet. That is a kind of a spiritual awakening is one thing I would say, a transformation. Pluto always tends to be a very powerful, transformative. It's often jolting. It's not easy, but it's also awakening. I really believe that we are here purifying and rectifying the soul. In fact, one of the things Joe and I have talked about a lot, and that is if you start getting into the ancient Egyptian rabbinical texts, there's a synagogue in Cairo, Egypt. It's known as the Cairo-Genzia documents, and they were discovered in the, I think, 1700s, as early as that, but they existed there nearly 2,000 years. And what's so important about documents like this is it validates a lot of things that modern astrology has lost, and that is, who the heck are we really? We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. We're not our astrology. The angelic forces incarnated us with these very blessed, and sometimes they feel cursed, but they're actually blessings in disguise. So when you have Saturn and Pluto, those two aren't going to join up again ever like that on your South Node. The chances of that are once in a lifetime. So what happened to you, by the way?
Unless I lived till like 76 or something. So actually, that's actually really interesting. Well, I had a really bad spell from the day that Saturn went direct, which was September 18th. My house flooded. So I kind of have not been listening to the show as much and been pretty unstable until about the 12th of January, where the squeeze is what she called it. She uses archetypical astrology is her kind of deal. And she said the squeeze was going to ease up. But, I finally got some peace at the beginning of last month, and then all this COVID-19 stuff started happening. So, So, once you find a little bit of peace. But, it's interesting that you said the archangelic forces as well, because, it reminds me kind of the Daskalos idea, again, of, where the permanent personality versus the, the
familiar with Daskalos. I love Daskalos. Daskalos is awesome.
Yeah, we just had Daniel Joseph on last week.
We've talked about this before, actually. Oh, yeah, that's why I started listening a lot more again. But what would that indicate in general to you, Jeff?
Well, I mean, Saturn and Pluto together is always dramatic jettisons of the past. It tends to, and flooding your house, I mean, that had to really change your life. That's a big event. And over the South Node, that also might mean the South Node, also known as Ketu, sometimes makes things leave your life and new things come in. It's a page turner, no question about that. You don't know what dasha you're in Vedic astrology, do you? What Time Lord you're in?
No, I don't. No, I'm sorry. I think it might have been
a critical element on that, and that's the thing is looking at the whole chart as a whole, because you really need to look at a confluence of cycles, progressions, primary directions, doshas. Those are all things in astrology that show phases and timing. Like I've seen people come into my life that were very significant when things contact the nodes. See, the South Node in Vedic astrology is also a lot to do with spiritual paths that are entering your life.
Well, that's really interesting you said that. So that's perfect. And then really quick, so you were saying the Kalasarpa Yoga is going to kind of stop around May 10th. Does that mean that we're going to have an ease up on this COVID-19 hysteria, or?
I think that's when it's really going to start to level off. I don't think this is going to be like the Black Plague or anything. I really don't. I think it's not that it won't maybe crescendo a little bit more, but overall, I think they're going to get this thing under control. And I think that it's going to really start to dissipate by this summer. That's what the chart indicates.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I hope that's true. Awesome. Let's hope that all happens.
Yeah, thanks for your call, Josh. Yeah, so
all right,
Josh. The North and South Node thing is kind of like that's a big deal. Something I've been paying attention to, because everything, like, honestly, astrology hasn't really made a lot of sense to me until now. This point in my life, I'm starting to see the story unfold, like why a lot of things have happened in my life, and I think we don't really understand. We don't understand that till we get a little older, and then we look at the story of our life, and then we really start learning how to read a birth chart and on a basic amateur level, like I am, and then you're like, oh, well, this kind of all adds up,
Yeah, I have to say, any astrologer who's honest, and I've had the blessing of studying so much stuff, the more you look at it, the more you go, there's no human being that will ever fully figure it out. You can't. Astrology is exceedingly complex. When you look at all the different systems that are in play, and there's many really good astrologers out there, and I have to say, modern astrology has its virtues, but I kind of left that whole camp a long time ago. What really attracted me was the integration of who we are as souls. See, like in Jaimini astrology and Vedic astrology, you can actually see your soul roots. You can see kind of like the angel that's guiding the soul, and you can actually see where your soul root comes from. See, like Joe, you take in your chart, just for instance, the moon is actually your Atma Karaka. Karaka means indicator, and Atma means soul. So your soul root actually came from the Sephira of the moon on the tree of life.
Nice.
And see, this is stuff that's really missing. And what's great about that, what does that mean to you? You might say, okay, Jeff, what the hell does that mean? Okay, well, you look at where is that in the what we call Navamsha chart. See, there's a ninth divisional. The numerology is all over the place in Jaimini astrology. So you have the moon in your Karaka Amsha chart in your 10th house in both charts, or it's the what we call Karaka Amsha ascendant. So what does that mean in plain English? The older you get, it's really good. You will find that once you harness the Mars-Saturn energy in your chart, which has always been challenging for you. You and I have talked about that. You had a rough childhood like I did. You kind of got your butt kicked. Right. Yeah, we both heavy-handed parents, particularly fathers. But the thing is, you gain wisdom with this chart. See, because your soul roots indicator is actually the moon, and it's very strong in both charts. Now, people listening to this will say, well, what does that mean? Okay, how does that make any sense? It's fascinating. They actually say there's an angelic court before we incarnate, and those angels actually pick the parents where that soul root is going to have to come in and experience certain things. So literally the soul is attached to the embryo at conception, not at birth. But when the life starts, when the actual, because no one knows when that baby's going to exit the womb. The doctors will say, well, your water's getting ready to break. And, of course, mom runs around and we never know when that baby's really coming. Even cesareans are scheduled, and no one really knows at the beginning of that conception when that's really going to happen. Could be premature, right? Could be a little late. So the point is that the soul is tied to the body at first breath. And that's an interesting phenomena because breath means rosh or spirit in the Hebrew. So think about it. When the breathing stops, the soul vacates the body and the spirit and the psyche. And so your soul was tied in right when the mathematics of the moon were just right. So in the ninth divisional chart, this shows a path for you that's really good to communicate things to people.
No, that's cool. It's kind of funny too because I've always been in love with the moon. Like I can't stop looking at it sometimes. I did get one of those regular reading. I guess you could just pull off the internet, and it said I had a pattern. I forget the name of the pattern, but it all pointed towards the moon, like it was the significator of everything. So it's also North Node in Cancer too. Think about that.
Yeah, in Vedic astrology, it's actually in Gemini.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, what does North Node in Gemini mean?
Well, it's very good because it's with the moon and communications again. It's really good for communications.
No.
And see your rising sign. There's so many secrets. I mean, we could sit here and just go through a chart.
I love it.
I find in readings, I spend literally a half an hour to 40 minutes before I get on the phone with somebody. And I get this whole page of notes. And it's interesting because when I get done with the reading, I go, God, I got so much more to tell them. The readings are not long enough because it's so exceedingly complex. Like just take your ascendant, Joe. You were actually born in the 26th sidereal degree. Now you might say, okay, what the hell does that mean? Well, there's angels that rule every one of these degrees. And this is why, again, I like the ancient Egyptian and Vedantic and Chaldean stuff and Greek because it gets into this. See, the 26th degree for you is actually an angel called the degree of cultivation. See, and what's interesting is the symbol for that is an antique ancient temple with muses built on a rock over which flows an enchanting fall of clear, sparkling water. You might say, well, what the hell does that mean? Well, it's really good. It's like you are always trying to seek an ideal in things, even amidst the hell of war, fires, and destruction. See, you've been surrounded, you and I have talked about that. You have a chart where you were brought in, where you always feel like, oh my God, I'm always in the midst of this intense, situations in life. But yeah, it's always been intense for you. It's like, oh my God. But yet, there's this placid peace that's flowing out of the middle of it. So it's kind of like you're in chaos, but yet you find that peace through that chaos ultimately.
Yeah, there is no doubt about that because there's nothing organized about my life for sure.
And the older you get, see, what's great is you're entering phases right now where a lot of things are going to be changing, and this is perfect. Between the time you're at your age right now until about what is it? Here, I got to do the math. You're about another 5 years. You got some amazing stuff coming in, really amazing stuff. So yeah, and you see, you're in a Mercury Dasha, and you're going to hit the K2 Dasha, right? You will be moving by 2023. That's when you escape from Alcatraz because you have K2
physically moving. That would be nice.
Yeah. That's during that 7-year period. You're going to be shifting around a lot because K2 is in your 4th house.
Okay, cool. See, this is the kind of stuff I think people want to hear. Like you pick apart a chart, and then they kind of get to understand what you do. Like how. I'm telling you guys, when I did the reading, he had all these different screens pulled up, and I was like, whoa, this is different. Like, this is intense. This is going to be intense, And it was all recorded.
It's so cool because everything is recorded right on your computer in video. You don't need any software, nothing. I just give you a code. You literally watch a movie. And it's very powerful. I mean, I remember 20, 30 years ago, people would walk out of my office, with a stack of papers and a cassette tape that was, hopefully audible. Now, I mean, it's crystal clear. You sit there in the environment of your own home or office. I have some business guys, they pull over in their Teslas and they smack the dash, or even the iPhone. I have people doing sessions on iPhones these days, or Droids. It works perfect. You can see everything I'm doing, and it gets all recorded on video, and then you can download it into your phone and watch it. So technology has really made reading so much more fun. And my goal is, you might find this funny. I've always tried to get away from astrology. I've always been into electronics and filmmaking and production, and astrology keeps bringing me back. And I go, why is that? And it must be that I like helping people. It's a good thing to do, to give them insight.
Yeah, and I think people might be, there's a lot of people out there that are pushing, when I say pushing, they're selling their astrological services and stuff like that. And people get a little weary, right? Because they're like, oh man, they're just trying to sell me. And I get it. But astrologers have been a profession since the beginning of time. And in order to make money as an astrologer, you got to sell your services. So to me, it's like it's better that you go through a few people. And that's why there's only like 2 astrologers that I deal with. And to be honest with everybody, and it's you and Mary. Mary, I deal with her because she's very intuitive. I mean, psychically, she's like, bam, 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 bam. You're like the technical guy where you just really know how to read everything, and you're well studied, and this has been in your family, and you know more about astrology than most people that I've talked to be honest.
Well, I worked hard at it, and I think anybody can learn it if they work hard. And that's one of the only criticisms I've had. There's a lot of good astrologers out there, but some of them, they don't work hard enough. And you really have to take the responsibility to know your stuff. In any profession that you do, people should work hard so that they're good at what they do. To me, I was always blessed to have great exposure. I have so many ancient documents in astrology. Some of them aren't that good. And I've had some teachers that weren't that good. I've had others that were incredible. But they were the ones that had the soul root for it. You can actually see who would be good at astrology in their chart. It shows up. I often point that out to clients when I'm doing readings. Like, hey, you should be a writer. You should be this or that. I never tell anybody what they should be, because I'm very against astrologers and psychics telling people what to do, but suggesting that they explore something that they may have a talent in that they didn't recognize, I think is a good thing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it is. And I'm telling you guys, right now you're probably thinking, should I spring and do it? You're going to get 20% off from Lighting the Void anyways. I swear on everything. Okay? This is me giving you my word, and that's big to me. If you hire Jeff, just like Mary, but if you hire Jeff too, you're going to get a different type of session, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be something that you can hold on to, something you'll always be able to refer to. And I even thought it was a conflict of interest once, Jeff. I was like, okay, I got Mary Ducina and I got Jeff Harmon here. Now, what am I going to do with this? Until I realized that, they're both astrologers, but they both have, it's kind of like if I put both of you together, I would have like the grand poobah of astrology and psychic stuff, but I promise you guys, it's going to be worth it. I almost thought that I lost my recording and I freaked out. That's how much I enjoyed it, because I thought I lost it when my computer crashed one time, but I still got it.
Yeah. The thing I like the most about it is looking at who we are really as who are we really? Why did we get the parents we got? Why did we, go into the situations and the dynamics we get? And oftentimes the answers are, it was what we needed.
Yeah.
And the cycles in Vedic astrology are absolutely amazing. There's certain things every soul has come here to do, and that's actually shown by the primary directions. Primary directions are really astronomy at work. Where you're born on the globe, it's like taking a Polaroid snapshot at that longitude and latitude outwards towards the heavens. And it's really complex. All the fixed stars, all of the planets will move at a primary rate, at the rotational rate of the Earth where you were born. See, those are called primary directions. See, if you go north to the North Pole or South Pole, the Earth appears to go much slower. It's much faster at the equator. Those are called the ascensional rates, even though we know the axis turns the same rate all the time. But it's where you are in the globe. Those are called primary directions. The Egyptians knew this stuff really well. So did the Greeks, and so did some of the Vedantic astrologers. So primaries look at, like Joe, you will live to have the moon cross your ascendant. That will be a huge change in your life. See, you can actually see the patterns in everyone's birth chart, and no one's the same. Like, I'll never live to see.
Now, are you talking about Western or Eastern? Or
you can apply this in sidereal or tropical, doesn't matter. These are called primary directions. It's one of the oldest types of astrology and clearly one of the most accurate. I just had two dear friends of mine die, and they really died a blessed death. One went to sleep, never woke up. It's a great way to go. Wasn't, carved apart with cancer. Right. Another one was raking leaves out in the woods. They found him spread eagle. He just laid down and died. And when you think about it, no one wants to die, but that was and it showed in the primary directions that these guys would die in a very wonderful way. And it also showed that they would. And now that's something I don't like to do for people, and I try and avoid that.
People are going to die in their chart?
Yeah, you can certainly see when it's indicated, but it's up to the karmic, I think, lessons whether it actually happens. But you can. Interrogation charts can show that too. Like I've worked with doctors, and I had one doctor friend of mine. He says, Jeff, he said, am I out of here? And I said, I never like to say you are, but I said you're in a very precarious window right now, and he passed. And
oh man.
Sad, yeah. And I'm always one to encourage people, and I believe God is far above astrology. In fact, one of the coolest things about studying the ancient stuff is you realize astrology is not the be-all, end-all. It does not. There are miracles. There is divine sacred magic. The angel, our souls are created literally hundreds of dimensions above the so-called firmaments or heavens. And this is another reason why I don't subscribe to the modern astrology stuff. We're not Pisces and Aries and, whatever they say, and Aquarians and all that. Yes, you may find some similarities, but your soul is created hundreds of dimensions above any of the galaxies or firmaments, so to speak.
Right.
And it's like literally that's called absolute. Your soul is created up in divinity. And then you have the worlds of Braya, which is where creation happens. And then you have the Yetziratic worlds.
That's formation.
There's 49 dimensions and 49 subdimensions in each one. It's beyond human comprehension.
And see what he's talking about there is, in case people don't know, a lot of times when we talk Kabbalah, people think they see that tree and they think Sephiroth, but that's just like a glyph, and it shows you the four worlds of manifestation, with the angels, where they belong. There's so much on there. It's amazing.
So much on there. Yeah, it's really cool. So, and then you have what they call the pouch of the slingshot, which is the astral worlds. That's between the lunar spheres or the heavens and the earth. It's the astral worlds. There's 49 dimensions and 49 subs in that too. That's where the ghosts, the demons, the spirits, and all the action happens on the physical plane from the astral worlds. A lot of angels in there. And what's interesting about all this stuff is when you see some of the ancient rabbinical texts, you start seeing, wow, I see where some of the religions got these ideas of heaven and hell and different dimensions and enlightenment and moksha and all these different terms, because they're all there. They're all there. And we are not the astrology. We came in at the time in order to unfold these experiential happenings, or you could say the experiences that were happening.
Yeah, that's cool to know, man. See, that's the good stuff. That's really cool to know, and it makes more sense because I told you guys, you come from a realm, you heard it at the beginning of the show, right? You come from a place of light, and then you matter, and you do count. We'll be right back with Jeff Harmon. A little bit more coming up from him. Stay with us.
In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheT.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheT.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheT.com.
AncientLifeOil.com. For your CBD needs, just remember, AncientLifeOil.com. What does it do for the body, you ask? I can't say due to the people in the suits that run the industry. Big Pharma's all over CBD because of its well, you know what I mean. Research the benefits of CBD on Google and come back to AncientLifeOil.com and purchase your CBD today. Non-GMO and all organic. You don't want to be using a petroleum product. You want to be using the cleanest CBD product on the market. AncientLifeOil.com. We even have CBD for your pet. Help your pet's discomfort. Help your discomfort. Log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Newly reduced prices to pass off the savings to the most important person, you. AncientLifeOil.com. And one more thing, we have topicals too. So if you have joint pain and some different issues that are going on in your body, you might want to use a topical. Think about it. AncientLifeOil.com.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM. See you then.
My name is Jake. I'm from Billings, Montana, and I am a void walker.
Hey, Joe Root. Thanks for lighting the void. This is Janine in the bluegrass of Kentucky, and I am a void walker.
What's up, guys? This is Damien from San Marcos, Texas, and I'm a void walker. I listen to the show to keep myself aligned with the world.
Hi, this is Laura, a.k.a. Laura Lavender. I'm from Las Vegas, and I listen to Lighting the Void because it helps me understand some of the strangest experiences I've had. So thanks for all that you do and for always being there for us, Joe.
You can tug all day long on a carpet that's been glued to the floor. Then you hurt. There are many strong glues out there. Let's see, there's liquid nails and Gorilla Glue. You ever try to remove 3M 5200? That adhesive is strong. Then there's bathroom caulk, silicone rubber, adhesive tape, super glue, flex tape, and stickers. Graffiti. Scientists have come up with glues that stay stuck and can't be removed. Until now. Until Handyman Formula by DeBond. That's right. 95% of adhesives become unstuck when you spray Handyman Formula directly on them. Just spray, wait a few minutes, and remove. It's amazing. Most adhesives become unstuck when you use Handyman Formula. Visit DeBondCorporation.com or MCMaster.com. Call 561-575-4200. This stuff really works. Handyman Formula by DeBond, a great Christmas gift.
This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie. The Antarctic Peninsula is one of the fastest warming regions on Earth. The peninsula's two major glaciers, the Thwaites Glacier and the Pine Island Glacier, are retreating towards the mainland faster than new ice can form, revealing the continent's coast a little more each year. The retreating ice revealed an uncharted island that has long been buried underneath the ice, but finally visible above sea level for the first time. Researchers with the International Thwaites Glacier Offshore Research Project discovered the island while sailing off the coast of Pine Island Glacier. The small island is only about 1,150 feet long and mostly covered in ice, but rises from the sea with a brown rock distinct from the surrounding glaciers and iceberg. Researchers have tentatively named the uncharted outcropping Sif Island, after the Norse goddess associated with Earth. According to UFO researcher Diane Tessman, the author of Future Humans and UFO, says the USS Nimitz Tic Tac UFO could actually be piloted by human-like AI or living humans not from this Earth. She explained that the USS Nimitz returned to the same place year after year, and entire squadrons have been seen on radar shortly before the encounter. Tessman theorizes that the intelligence piloting the mysterious craft is not only human-like, but actually human, our own species time-traveling from the future to observe its history. NASA is tracking a massive asteroid. The colossal asteroid is being tracked by NASA's automated systems at the Center for Near-Earth Object Studies in California. The asteroid has officially been dubbed 52768, and it's estimated to measure up to 2.5 miles across. The asteroid will fly by Earth on April 29th. And when this happens, NASA said the asteroid will make a close approach to our planet. According to the Planetary Society, an asteroid bigger than 0.6 miles across is big enough to threaten global destruction. Astronomers estimate such objects have a 1 in 50,000 chance of hitting Earth every 100 years. MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, released its UFO sighting numbers for February. 540 UFO sightings were reported, and 430 of those sightings took place in the United States, followed by 34 in the UK and 33 in Canada. The top 3 states to report UFO sightings were California, Florida, and Texas. The top reported shape was circle crafts at 104. There were reports of 18 landings, hovering, or takeoffs, as well as 14 entities observed. This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335.
One 800-588-0335. That's the call number if you want to talk to Jeff. We got a few more minutes here with him. We'll be back next week. The show comes on at 9 p.m. Pacific to midnight, 5 nights a week. And then the Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable comes on afterwards. And if you can, please donate towards the show. You can go to lightingthevoid.com and hit the donate button. We can sure use it. And for all of you that have, we love you for it. Thank you very much. All right, so let's take this caller and then see what's on the caller's mind here. Looks like we got 214 area code. You're on the air with Jeff Harmon. Who are we speaking with?
Hey, what's up, man? This is Anthony from Dallas, Texas.
Anthony from Dallas, Texas. What's up, man? You got a question for Jeff?
Yeah, I just had a quick question for him, man. I was wondering, what do you think about using astrology for like parenting? You know, like if you would get your kid's chart, you know, and kind of just use it to maybe nudge them in certain directions, or if you thought it would be like kind of messing with somebody else's fate in a way.
That's a good question. I actually do a lot of charts with parents and children, particularly where they're doing like what you're saying is like, hey, what is my child? Where are some natural tendencies that are indicated in the chart? And it's interesting, we were mentioning Claude Swanson. Claude and I had looked at a lot of the Gauquelin techniques and data that was mined on athletes versus creative people versus technical people. I often find right off the bat, like I see it in Vedic astrology. You can often see where someone has esoteric skills or they have technical skills or they're very practical. On and on. You can really see that in people where their traits are, and I think it's great for parents to see that, because I believe in free will. I don't think anyone should tell anyone what to do, but it's also nice to see if they have a certain talent. You can encourage that. The other one that I found really useful is compatibility. If people have more than one child, or they find that one spouse really gets along great with the child and the other one just doesn't, you can often see. Like I just had a reading today where an individual, she couldn't believe it. She goes, "How did you know that my mother was so horrible to me?" I said, "Because it's in the chart." I said, "You guys have an old karmic rival." And yet I said, "But I'll bet you loved your dad." She goes, "Oh my God, my dad was my angel." And I said, "Yeah, look at, he's Jupiter in the chart and he aspects you can see it." So oftentimes it's a wonderful tool to understand sometimes that people who aren't compatible with you, you step away and maybe not try and make that happen, but respect that it's that way. A great story was I had a couple come in years ago, and I never heard a story like this in my life. They sat down and they said, "We love each other. We've had, I think, 6 children together," they said. And the man looks at me, he says, "But I want to kill her." He says, "She makes me so mad. And she's always made me so mad, but I love her." He says, "We pray together, we love each other, but she just makes me so angry." And I said, "That's because her Mars is on your moon." And he says, "Well, what does that mean?" I said, "Well, it just means she's always going to challenge you. You can't look to her for emotional approval. You have to look at her like the rich aunt that, gave you, $1 million or might someday, and that you just don't give your emotions the ability to be hurt. You have to just realize that's the dynamic." So I see this with parents and children, and it does. I think it gives you a different viewpoint than psychology.
Right.
Yeah. And thanks for your call. You got any other questions before we let you go? Real quick, just here, real quick.
Yeah. Actually, what astrology would you deem the most effective for using it as a parent, and at what age, would you start to kind of whip up a chart for them?
A good question.
Yeah, I find the tool that I use first always is Jyotish or Vedic astrology. That's always my first go-to, and the reason why I find it's very accurate in showing traits of the spirit and the soul. And that's always my go-to one. And the reason why is I get results from it quickly. It usually shows up right away. And
gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks for your call, man. Good to know Dallas is listening. Thanks for your call, brother.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good luck. Are you a parent? You got a child?
Yeah. I have a 6-year-old daughter.
Oh, awesome. I tell you, I didn't have a child until I was quite a bit older, and I wish I'd have had more. I have one son right now, and I just love him to death. To me, there's nothing greater than being a dad, or a mom. It's just pretty awesome, man.
Yeah.
It really is. It gives you a purpose in life,
Yeah, thanks for your call. I really appreciate that. I got a son, too. Like that, I've been really looking at, me and my son have really been bonding. Too, the thing is, I remember when you did my chart, you talked about that. You talked about how you could see that me and my son have had past lives together and stuff like that, and how cool he was. That was really strange. No one had ever told me about that in my chart before.
Yep. He probably thinks you're hard on him, but actually you're probably really good for him. He'll appreciate that someday. See, your son is the Lord of the Fifth, and your Mars is on him. But it also shows you got a lot of great practical skills. I bet you're a good mechanic, aren't you, Joe?
Oh, yeah. I love taking stuff apart, putting it back together.
I'll bet you're really good because you got Mars and Saturn in the ascendant. And that's the mark of a mechanic. And that your son will appreciate from you as he gets older and older.
Yeah. And what about, like, someone's asking, what about same birthdays? I don't know. You have to be more specific than that because that could mean for a lot of things. So
there's no two charts exactly alike.
Yeah, and so earlier you said that I wanted to ask you this too before I forget, Jeff. You said, we're not when you hear people say horoscopes where you're a Libra or you're this and they read your horoscope, you say, well, you don't really buy into that. But let me just ask you this. The sun, moon, and rising signs are your biggest energies. That you do kind of buy into, right? Or how would you... Okay.
Yeah, it's the the interest. I call sun sign astrology love, light, and cluelessness. Not to bust on it, but I kind of do because the Earth is rotating on its axis an average of around 1,600 miles an hour. The ascending degree is moving constantly and never stops, and it moves 1 degree of longitude every 4 minutes, or it moves literally about 15 minutes of arc every minute. So it's constantly moving. So you can't ever get the same ascendant. If two people are born the same day, like let's say they were born exactly at the same location, yes, the charts would be very, very similar. But you'd have to have it literally at the same minute and second, right to the second, because fixed stars are really complex. When you start looking at the fixed stars that are behind planets or ascending and descending, they can move literally in seconds and minutes. So there's no two charts exactly alike. And if you're apart, even if you're born at the same time, like let's say someone's born 5 miles apart, you're going to have a different chart. It won't be drastically different. But if you're born on the same day and you're on the other side of the world, or you're even 200 miles, it's a huge difference. Huge. Longitude and latitude really affects the charts.
Well, I'm telling you, Jeff, I mean, there's astrology. I was talking to Gordon White about this. Astrology has really picked up on the internet. There's people, YouTube channels and all kinds of stuff doing TikTok, doing reports and readings, and none of them, I promise you guys, none of them have really given what you did in that reading that I got. It's like, I'm telling you guys, there's a difference between someone that just is, some of these people are really good with Western astrology, by the way. But there's a difference between that and somebody that can look at a lot of different systems and tell you a lot of different things about your life and also time things better. It looks like we got 509 area code. You're on the air with Jeff Harmon. Who are we speaking with?
Hey, Jeff, this is Chance. How you doing, Joe?
What's up, Chance? What's on your mind, brother? You got a question for Jeff?
No, what? Yeah, I'm just here listening in, and I really appreciate the shout out there. I was calling about my mom.
Okay.
Me and my mom were born on the same birthday.
Oh, wow.
We practically have the same birth chart. Practically.
Yeah, but you're years apart.
Yeah, so you're years.
About 20.
Yeah, so you're gonna have a different chart then, right? I mean,
oh yeah, you bet. You definitely be different because the cycles. You not only have the ascendant and the sun and the moon, but you also have the relationships of the planets. In other words, the cycles of where they are. Yeah,
good question, though. Yeah, it's a good question because a lot of times people have the same birthdays and I don't know if there's a significance to it or not. I'm sure there is some kind of significance to it, but as far as your astrological chart goes, they're so complex. They're vastly different.
Yeah, they're going to be way different. Yeah, and the moon too. If you that's the other, the really interesting thing is the moon is doing like Mach 2 around the Earth. It's really fast. It moves about 1 degree every 2 hours, but it's moving at minutes and seconds. And in Vedic astrology, that can drastically affect the Time Lord that you're born in. You see, and the sign that it's in too. There's 108 divisions of the lunar zodiac. And that starts the clock at many of the energies that are formed or impinging upon the soul during the incarnation. So it's really, really complex stuff. And it's really fascinating, too.
So then let me ask you, Jeff, how do you feel about numerology per se? How's my birth my birth chart look if it's 07/08/1990? You know what I mean?
I think astrology is complex numerology. I think the whole universe is complex numerology. When you really look at, like, quantum physicists, they'll tell you everything here is just made up of energy. It's all vibratory energy. All the atomic structures, all that, I believe, are held here by the archangels. So everything is numerology. The whole solar system. I always say, forget Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus. This may be the real matrix for the soul. And numerology is all over astrology, all over it.
Jeez. I'll be. Well, thank you for thanks for asking me to ask questions, Joe. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome,
I appreciate
brother.
that. That's actually a sense of knowledge. That's a sense of knowledge. Thanks, guys. All right. Thank you.
Have a good night.
It. Yeah.
All right, bud. Good luck to you.
Thank you, man.
All right, man. So that's
it's great to have good moms. I love moms. They're awesome. I got along.
It's good to have good moms. See, and I say, you guys have heard me say that a lot. Like, it's, a good mother that's never take that for granted, ever, 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 because I never had a mom, and it was one of those deals where, like, I had grandmas who were just as good, but it's still one of those deals where you better spoil that woman and hug her when you get old. Always hug them.
Yeah, we always miss people the most when they're gone. When we appreciate them when they're here, that's what really matters. But we're all having our different karmic journey. That's right. You got Ketu in the 4th house, which is the mother. Yeah. Yeah.
You talking about on my chart?
Yeah.
What does that mean, K2? So you got all these, like, it sounds like I'm talking to Bill Gates sometimes.
Well, no, it just means that you've got you would have had some real karma with the mother not being available to you.
Yeah, So for real, my dad kidnapped me from her, man, when I was little, because she was, doing into some bad things, and he heard me crying in the crib back there, and literally kicked in the window, jumped in there, and she was in there. I was crying, house full of Marines, left me in the crib just crying, freaking out, and he grabbed me, and he went up to the table, and then one of the guys actually was there, told me about it. He walked up to the table, he said, "I'm grabbing my son, and I'm getting out of here." He said, "Any of you guys want to try to stop me? Now's your time." He said nobody moved, and that was that.
Yeah. It's interesting. When I met my wife, I said the same thing. I said, "What happened to you at about 2 to 2.5 years old? Somewhere right around 2 and 9 months or something like that." And she said, "I got adopted." I said, "I'll bet." See, the primary directed moon was conjuncting Saturn, and it looked like she was taken care of, but her mother was 15 when she had her, and she just really couldn't raise her. So the aunt adopted her, and she moved in with them. And I could see that. You can often see patterns like that. Oftentimes I'm not out to, play that game, but you can see various patterns in the chart. And it's very powerful. See, like Joe, you had, by primary direction, Saturn would have squared your moon right at about 4 years of birth, maybe a little around 3-ish, something like that, 3-4 years of birth. Yeah. So that would have brought a major change. How old were you when he took you away?
I was a baby when he took me away. The 3-year-old thing that happened was something entirely different, though. Not something I'm comfortable talking about on the.
Yeah.
But
oh, sure. And I don't mean to pry. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still funny how accurate it is, though.
Yeah. Well, once you get past the wowie zowie of, oh, geez, it's accurate and all that, you start seeing the riddles that are in there. Like, wow, some force must have happened here that caused this. And one of my favorite texts is a book called the Sharar Hagilgum, or the Share Hagilgum. In Aramaic and Hebrew, Share means gates, and Hagilgum means cycling of the souls. And this opens up a plethora of ancient texts that talk about the angelic forces that actually bring the soul in. And a lot of times it's to complete karmic cycles with people either of your soul roots lineage or other people you've had past life issues with. And that completion cycle is just part of the game. And it's like a very complex jigsaw puzzle that no one will ever completely see. You know, you can do past life regressions. You can see a lot of patterns in astrology, but the soul roots could potentially go back before time. There's evidence that this solar system was rearranged. There was a planet in between Jupiter and Mars. It's now known as the asteroid belt. There's also evidence Venus wasn't where it is. Astronomers are saying this. You know, it's fun to talk to Claude because we've had discussions about various different concepts like this.
Isn't that crazy that you bring that up? We were just talking about that last night, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So what the hell is time? I mean, if you think about, yes, time is very real. We all have calendars. We all got bills to pay. We all have these deadlines that are very consequential in our lives. But when you think about it, it's one big astronomical clock. A day is a rotation of the Earth. Sun doesn't rise and peak and set and come and anti-cumulate at midnight. It's the rotation of the Earth. So that's all divisible into the hours, minutes, and seconds. Hence why we had a leap year this year, because the astronomical cycles don't work out as linear as the years. We always get a day at a time, right? So we had a leap year where we have an extra day. So this is all like a year is simply a cycle of the Earth around the sun. So if you think about the possibility that there are multi-dimensions and that there are many journeys that the soul would go upon, time is all relative to the reality structures that we have here. But there is no time really. And when you start, I think it's very important that we stay in our reality structure here. But, you know, people who play around with astral travel, which can be very exciting and also be very dangerous, depending on, you know, all that. But it's fun to read these texts because you start looking at what is astrology and what is it not. And there seems to be overwhelming evidence that the reason we have the astrology we have, and I personally believe this to be true, is because of the karmic cycles that we are either A, experiencing, or B, dissipating, not only by ourselves, but the interactions with all the others we come in contact with. I've seen it in my life where primary directions, I'll meet someone that has a karmic implication that's profound in my life, either for good or for ill. And like, look at Joe, you and I were just discussing, and I won't disclose on the air what it was, but you just had a very powerful event precisely when Saturn and Pluto conjoined on an opposition to your moon.
It changed my life. It changed who I am. It changed a lot of things.
Your life. That's right. And I see this all the time. I've gone back in my own life. In the late 70s, I had a really bad motorcycle accident. And when I looked at the primary directions, I go, oh my God, how come I didn't catch that? But maybe I wasn't supposed to, you see? So this gets into all the predicting the future fate stuff. Sometimes we need these lessons to happen to us for various reasons. Sometimes the pain we experience is actually to help other souls.
Yeah. Yeah. I've thought about that too. And here's the biggest one, right? Like if you manage, what I've also noticed too is as cycles, right? Like karmic cycles, stuff that keeps repeating in our lives, that kind of thing. And then when Saturn comes around and it's like, listen, you know, that's what happened for me during that, you know, Saturn-Pluto conjunction you're talking about, right?
Sure.
It came around and it said, all right, Joe, now you got to deal with this part of yourself. You don't have a choice. You're going to go kicking and screaming, but you're going, you know? And I was like, it was rough, man. It really was. It was hard. It was rough. I mean, some people kind of know what I went through.
You know, the world wasn't put here to make us happy. It was put here to make us grow. And we do. We all grow. It's always great to have the good times, and that's indicated usually very accurately by the astrology. And it also indicates the challenging times. And to me, I like seeing them both because you can't stop them. But there's one golden thing we all have, and that is our ability to react to them more appropriately than we would have had we not known that they were there.
Yeah, I mean, and here's another one that me and my dad just got through talking about. And it's so funny. Like, you're talking about so many synchronicities tonight. was talking to my dad before the show, and we were talking about death and how all the car wrecks he survived and everything. I said, I watched The Last Samurai last night before I crashed out, and when the son was telling Katsumoto, like, it's my time, father, because they believe in that, like, it's my time. And my dad was telling me that. He was like, there's a lot of things that happen, and when it's your time, it's your time. And the more I look at this stuff, all the stuff that I've been through, the things I survived, the things he survived, I think there's something real to that. Like, there's really a time for you. So
every one of us are going to do that. They say the angel that ties the soul, the spirit, the psyche to the body will come back right when you leave. And we're all going to leave our respective ways. Some of us will die in our sleep. Some of us will hit a bread truck. Other people will die different ways. But we're all going to exit the body known as death. But nobody dies. Nobody dies. Their overwhelming evidence of that is amazing. In fact, that's what really attracted me to the ancient systems. Rather than trying to predict the future, it's more of finding out the cycles you're in and who are you really and why did you come here, and that's what I think Jyotisha's real strength is.
Now, when you pull up a chart, Jeff, what's the first thing that you look at? Just curious, what's the first thing you go to when your first session?
The first thing, what I was taught, I had a teacher who was so cool. This dude was so great. He was an old Indian, knew stuff. He would show me stuff about astrology I would have never figured out from any book. He's like, he says, Mars is always the trigger, Jupiter's the expansion, Saturn's the release of karma. In fact, if you look at the glyphs of planets, they're all combinations of the circle, the crescent, and the cross. See, the circle is the sun. That's God's seed of creation. Everything on this planet starts out as a beginning. It grows and matures, it atrophies, and it dies. The moon is the crucible. And isn't that interesting? That's exactly where the womb of a woman is, where the fetus leaves. Right? It's also where it's impregnated, the seed. So, and the cross is the four elements. So look at Saturn. It's the cross over the crescent of the moon. Jupiter is exactly opposite. It's the crescent of the moon over the cross. You see? And then you look at Venus. It's the sun over the cross. So Saturn is previously concretized or created karmic energies that are now releasing through the cross of matter or physical manifestation. That's why a lot of people will say in the ancient world, Saturn is where time stops. In fact, they say in the astral dimensions, the astral Saturn, not the physical one, is where the soul finally will escape. It will reincarnate in what they call the pouch of the slingshot. Could be one time, could be thousands of times that you could reincarnate. And I always get kind of irritated because Rome threw that doctrine out somewhere between the 2nd and the 5th century, the doctrine of reincarnation. And it's everywhere else. I don't know why they made this election to throw it in the garbage can when the Hebrew text, the Egyptian text, the Greek, and Vedantic, it's all there. It's completely there. And it's not just kind of there. It's like embedded in the Psalms, in the ancient Torah, and the scriptures, and the Vedantic scriptures. It's all there. You can't make this stuff up. And there's codes and ciphers that are in those that the Psalms alone will blow your hair back. One of my favorite mystics is a man named Rabbi Yehuda. He actually lived in Baghdad in the, I think in the mid 1800s. And the depossession work he would do, he could actually see, he talks about how some souls are literally incarnate for punishment in the mineral, the animal, and the vegetable, and the human kingdoms. And this stuff sounds bizarre, but you go, wow, how could that be? Well, people really doing evil stuff sometimes actually are punished and dwelling in different dimensions, be it the physical the mineral, the animal, the different kingdoms, and they're called Iburs. And the Egyptians were all over this stuff. They knew a lot about it. And what's fascinating is you go, well, how could that be? But then you start studying Vedic astrology, and you go, wow, this is more than just astrology. It's actually showing cycles when forces are joining the auric field that we aren't consciously aware of. This is why we have the experiences that we do. It's karmic etheric energy on the astral planes that are literally working on us. Claude Swans and I were talking about this. See, science always wants to pull out a gadget. They want to measure. We got to prove it. So it's got to be gravity. It's got to be electromagnetism. It's got to be torsional waves. No, it don't. Because yes, it may manifest in those areas. And I think Claude's right when he talks about torsion waves, but that's the lower manifestation. When you start getting into angelic forces, see, in Vedic astrology and the Upanishads, they actually say the planets are grahas, and graha actually means seizer or grasper of the aura. So there's a vibrational energy that's way past frequency. These are forces that work down through matter. So it's much, much higher dimensional. And I don't think, I can certainly say I don't have the mind to perceive what that, I don't even think it's spectra. I think it's far beyond that. There's forces that operate far above. Daskalos in the Magus of Strovolos, I think he's the closest. He says it's etheric energy. It's life force energy. Claude talks about that as well, where these forces are working far above the, what I would call propagational wave theories of physics, but yet they are the causational energies that work through the atomic matter and into our reality structure. I mean, science, as amazing as genetics is, you can't find one scientist that can even create a houseplant. They don't know how to create life, let alone ensoul it. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, it's one thing to genetically splice something that's living. You find some smartass in Harvard who can come up with a way to actually create a houseplant or a chicken. Can't be done. You can splice it. Yeah. You know, you can sit there and take existing DNA or existing material. One of my favorite joke is this is a great joke Arch Crawford used to tell me. He said, the scientist said to God, we think we can create life. And God said, okay. And the scientist says, well, all I need is some clay. And God says, get your own damn clay. You see, so the point is we're still playing around with already what is. Now think about the reality structure we're in. I mean, yeah, science could say, oh, there's amino acids, there's molecules, atoms, neutrinos, all this stuff. Those are the building blocks that are the end result of the archangelic forces holding all this together. What the hell is thought? Think about thought. Thought is so much higher than anything physical. Thought and spirit and all these etheric energies, your intentions, they far exceed anything that's physical. And that transcends the physical body. When everyone exits, known as death, that spirit and that soul will transcend. It may stay intact, it may not. In fact, there's evidence that the psyche, which is the present personality, the spirit and the soul are not necessarily the exact same thing. They integrate. These are like almost separated etheric energies that are very, very magical. I think the whole universe is God's mind, if you will, or the archangelic forces working down through. And it's fascinating stuff. And astrology seems to be the interactive consciousness that's stirring this. It's the mechanical machine that's constantly needing and bringing in and out souls at different times. It's literally a matrix that is incredibly complex. When you look at the rotating, you take our solar systems doing what, 500 million miles an hour, and that's a guesstimate by NASA and space agencies that are pretty accurate. They're saying our solar system is doing like 500 million miles an hour around the central sun. I mean, think about that. That could never be in the same place twice. And then our galaxy's jetting away from another one at the speed of light. I mean, it's incomprehensible what's really going on here from an astronomical standpoint. We'll never figure it all out. It's all about souls and energies and experience. So it's absolutely magical.
Well, man, This has been an absolutely magical evening and interview, Jeff. Thank you for coming back on. It's been a pleasure having you on here, brother.
I love to talk about this stuff because to me, I realize how much I don't know. And, the more you just fathom this stuff, you just go, wow, it's just, it's really a divine place. We spend so much time worrying, we worry about the bills, we worry about this, we worry about that. And rightly so, we all got our worries. But it's really, I think, healthy to just contemplate this stuff once in a while. And the religions, to their credit, they tried to do this, and some of them do that. But I also think what's great about shows like yours, Joe, is it allows people to experiment with these conceptual ideas without dogma. And that's why a lot of people have moved away from religions. George Carlin was right. He said sometimes the best thing that came out of the religions was the music, right?
Right. Yeah. That was the best music, too, actually. So, yeah. Thanks for coming on. Well, I can't wait to talk to you again. You guys remember what he said, too. If you go get a reading from him in 2020, it's the year of the upgrade. So you get a reading from Jeff. Go to jeffharmon.com and you get it. What'd you say, 20% off? That's a deal. Yeah.
Just make sure you mention Joe's show and just say I heard him on Joe Roop and Camille will note that and you'll be cool.
Fantastic. Thanks, brother. It's been a pleasure talking to you again.
Yeah.
Barbara Charlton from Metaphorical Archaeology. If you've ever had a traumatic paranormal experience, the effects of it may stay with you for years. Who do you talk to? You can't go to conventional help. What we do is we use emotional freedom techniques or tapping to actually neutralize the effects of that event. Maybe when you tell the story now, your heart races and your palms get sweaty. You don't even want to think about it because you don't know how to neutralize that. That's what EFT tapping does. It neutralizes those emotions. The circuit that was recorded on is gone. The energy flows freely and you're free of it. And that's what emotional freedom is all about. We offer this as a pro bono service, but this is something that I offer because no one, it seems, is helping people with these experiences. If you'd like to reach me, it's really easy. My cell phone is 214-995-3754. Please leave a message. I will get back to you as quickly as possible. Or you can email me, barb.eft@gmail.com. And EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. Reach out to me. It's confidential. This works. You won't believe the result.
Hey, this check is wrong. I worked a holiday and 7 hours of overtime. Not getting paid correctly is a real pain. It could also hurt our boss if our company provides out-of-compliance checks. That's right, construction companies doing business with the government can get fined, or officials of the companies can go to jail if the checks aren't right. It's a law. The Davis-Bacon Act has 30 compliance issues for every check, but there is an easy way for construction companies to be in compliance. EMARS offers Compliant Client, a web-based system that finds and corrects all 30 of the possible out-of-compliance check issues. Users of Compliant Client report an 80% savings in time and money. Running a weekly payroll usually takes about 5 minutes. All 15,000 plus clients of EMARS have never had a legal compliance issue. Plus, they sleep better on check day. Contact EMARS at emarsinc.com or call 480-595-0466.
All right, man, this is Crow 777, and you are listening to The Fringe FM.
Right, me old Chiners. I know it's an ad break, but before you lot shoot off and make yourself a cup of Rosie Lee or whatever else it is you're going to sling down your Gregory Peck, you need to listen to me babble. If, like me, you found your way to Lighting the Void via a downloadable podcast, you might want to take a butcher's at the Fringe FM Wind and Kite. You won't Adam and Eve how many other shows there are or what they rabbit on about. Ancient history, conspiracy, the consciousness, the esoteric, the occult, metaphysics, parapolitical, ufology, technology and spirituality, to name but a few. They got featured hosts like Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Alex Exum, Tim Doyle, Cortana and Gigi, Susanna Ross, the Reverend John Polk, Michael Deacon and J.D. Lewis. You might find yourself listening to the thoughts and theories of the author of The Fish you just finished reading. Or you could pick up the dog and bone, call in and tell everyone your own beliefs or experiences. So do me a favour, before you put on the Ansel or crack open a bottle of vino, know, or roll a joint, go to the Fringe FM and see what you're missing.
From a cave in the depths of your mind, it's Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you're interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm, or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Hey, I'm J.M. DeBoard, and when I want to talk about dreams, I look up my man Joe Roop and his show, Lighting the Void.
Pretty cool to have Jeff Harmon back on the show. It's been a long time, and it was worth waiting. Every time we do a show with the guy, it's really interesting. I saw you guys saying that too, like I had the volume down during the commercials. You know what happened? Why that happened is because as soon as we went into break, Jeff, he pulled up my chart and he started talking about a lot of things, and they were really getting my attention, and I didn't even notice it. So I get interested in what he's saying. So you guys got like low commercials there for a little while, but that's cool. I mean, I'm glad that you're interested in the commercials. That it's better than what I'm used to. Most people don't like to hear the commercials. And if you want to advertise with us too, you can hit us up. Barber's getting good stuff. People are getting the tea and the oil. And right now, I think you probably, if you're super worried about the coronavirus or whatever, this is what someone put in my lap, and I really think you should invest in it too, is olive. It's like olive tincture, olive oil, olive immune support. That stuff's good. But what he was talking about really hit home with me, because before the show, I've had a lot of really intense conversations in the past week. And I remember when my dad got in that car wreck, I had a feeling like, I don't know if any of you are intuitive, but you kind of, those days you wake up and it's like, you know, something bad happened. And I remember that day I woke up, my grandmother called and she said, you need to, my late grandmother, she said, you need to come up to the top of the hill. The top of the hill is actually where Forest Tower is up here. She said, you need to come to the top of the hill. And I said, what happened? Like immediately I knew something bad had happened. And she said, well, you just need to come up here, son. And I'll never forget that day, like driving up the hill. And as I had a black Dodge Ram back then, a 1500 single cab, all tinted out with a Hemi in it. And I punched that thing. I got to the end of the road, drove up to the hill. And as soon as I saw my father's Buick, it's not a Buick, it's an Oldsmobile actually. He had like an ugly tan Oldsmobile, like from the 70s. It was an ugly car. But when I got to the top of the hill, it was not only mangled and flipped upside down, but it was crushed. And my heart just dropped into my stomach. I thought for sure my father was dead. I thought he's dead. And I remember saying to myself, no, not right now. Please, not right now. I remember saying that like I'm not ready for this to happen, And when I got up there, the firemen were pulling him out, and they had called a helicopter to come get him. And when they pulled him out, he was screaming in pain. And see, when I was little, I used to think that my dad roped the moon, like he was the biggest, toughest guy in the world. And it was like one of the first times I saw him in actual pain and agony. And even as a man, that was hard for me to watch. And, you know, he was screaming my back, this and that. And the hardest thing, too, was when the EMT was like, his name's Terry. They were like, Terry, who's this? And they pointed at me because they wanted to know. They were trying to get his vitals and all that stuff. And he would look at me and he couldn't say my name. And I really started freaking out then. But right before they shoved him in the ambulance, he yelled out my name. You know, he yelled like Joseph, and he yelled out my name. And I was like, okay, I'm following this thing. Actually, when I got to the scene, you know, traffic was stopped on both sides of the road, but I went around them. I actually hit the ditch, went around them, came up the ditch, drove up to the car and just slammed my brakes. And I didn't really care about traffic or any of that stuff. I just wanted to get my dad out of the car. And so I don't know what's going on with him. They sent a helicopter out. The helicopter actually missed us. It went like 12 miles south somewhere. And so the EMT guys said, we can't wait on the helicopter. You know, we got to go. Put him in the ambulance and took off. So now I'm trying to find where he's at. I get in the truck. I try to catch up to the ambulance, but I don't catch it. They're taking him to Little Rock. And I'm thinking, where is he? I actually had to stop at 2 hospitals before I got to him because everything happened so fast. He didn't have his wallet on him or anything. They actually had him in the hospital as a John Doe, you know. So when I found him, everybody was up there. My Uncle Ted, my cousins, Jennifer, Christy, Tony Joe, Melissa, like everybody was up there crying. And when I walked in, I thought he had died. And I remember asking my Uncle Ted, I was like, is he alive? And, you know, nobody knew. And they finally let me go back to see him. And I mean, I was just freaking out. So finally let me go back to see him. And I go back there and I walk into the room and there he is all wrapped up, you know, just smiling, bigger than anything. It was such a relief to see him. And I was like, Dad, what the hell happened? And he goes, I don't know. I pulled out in front of a truck and, you know, bam. And I said, are you okay? And he goes, don't you worry about me. When it's my time to go, it's my time to go. I'll be okay. And he wasn't crying. He wasn't scared. He knew that, like, he really believes this down to his soul. Like, he has a time to leave the earth. And he was talking about that to me. He was like, I've dropped my motorcycle going 120. I mean, he's had some crazy stuff happen to him, and he's lived through it all. I wonder sometimes if that's real. Like, is there an exact date and time we're supposed to leave? And sometimes also wonder, do we dodge that? It makes me think about this whole idea of destiny, fate, and choice, because if there really is destiny, if you really have things that are supposed to happen in your timeline, then do we really have a choice? But what I do know is this thing that Jeff's talking about with when you become to the earth, all of these things that happen in your life, they're happening because there's something going on in the spiritual realm. And I believe this is trying to grow your soul. And you can't grow a soul without putting pressure on it, without doing the right things. That's what the whole alchemy thing is about. The people that come into your life, the circumstances, the cycles that you keep going through. That's how you grow. And if you take a victim mentality approach, which I've been quick to do, like, why does this always happen to me? That kind of thing. You don't grow, but that's a trigger. That should be a trigger for you to grow your soul. I think when you start asking yourself that question, like, why does this always happen to me? That right there should just trigger your brain to think, okay, here's a moment. There's something going on here where I can grow. Because if you don't, you're going to end up old, bitter, and angry. Like, you know, one of those old people's like, get off my freaking grass type people. They use that stuff to grow. I mean, he actually dropped his, I'll tell you another thing that happened to him. He dropped it. He was going around a curve running from the police I think I was 3 years old when he did this. He was still kind of a daredevil, and my dad loves motorcycles just like me. So there's a curve up here in Landmark. He was running from the police. He'd already left them, and he was going 120 miles an hour on his, he had a, what was that called? It's a Honda, there's a name for it, a Honda Magna. It's got the dual exhaust that comes out the side. I mean, this thing can book it, right? So he's going up, he goes around this curve, and he has to lean his bike down, and he just lets off the gas and then gasses it a little bit. And there's these things called gators in the road. I don't know if you know what they are, but they're like these little bumps, like black bumps in the road. And as he's leaning sideways, the bike is lifting up off the ground of these gators, right? And his bike just kind of, he hits one of them just right, and it lifts off the ground totally. It throws him into a gas station where he's rolling head over, hand over head, just rolling. He split his helmet in like four pieces, and he ends up like sitting up between two gas pumps. And they said, my pop said when they got to him, when the cops finally caught up to him to arrest him, he said, "Damn it, quit rolling." Like he was putting his hands down to try to stop rolling. And the concrete had just literally just shred his skin off. His pants had come off because the concrete just rubbed him off. So I'm sure he's got like butt cheek hanging out and stuff. And then he ended up having to like wear kind of like a body cast when I was little. I remember seeing that when I was little, just freaking out. But he didn't die, he got snake bit when he was little, didn't die. He got snake bit so bad, everybody was cutting on him. Come on, like all this stuff has happened to most of you. You've had things where you should have died, right? But you didn't. So I kind of believe that. I believe when it's your time to go, it's your time to go. And I believe that there's something real to this astrology thing that we take for granted each day because there's so many just horoscope things that come out all the time. Like, you're an Aries, and this is what's going to happen for an Aries today. And you discount all the other energies in your chart. What you should be looking at is like your transits and look at the whole thing. Learn your birth chart. It's important. But, or at least I think it's important because you can kind of see the weather. It's not going to tell you what to do, but it's going to show you the weather in your life. It's just like you get to actually see the energies that are coming so you can kind of prepare yourself. I don't know if we got time to take this call, but I'll try. It looks like 618 area code. You're on the air. Who are we speaking with?
Hey, Joe, this is Pat.
What's up, Pat?
Hey, man, I was going to tell you something about that, knowing when it's time.
Yeah.
I've always had that all my life. I've always thought like that, never been scared to die. I was going to give you a thing. When I was a kid, I was in the wrong neighborhood, and I had a guy get out of the car, walk up to me, put a gun to my head. I just looked at him and said, "Pull the trigger."
Yeah, stick your gun.
And he looked at me.
Grab the barrel. Come on with it. Yeah.
No, dude. I just stood there. Well, I can't tell you the circumstances because, when I was young, I was a little wild. But anyway, yeah, I just stood there and he got out and put the gun up to my head. I was like, "Pull the trigger, man." And he just looked at me. He's like, "Man, dude, you're crazy. You're crazy." Got back in his car and took off. I was in an all-black neighborhood. I was the only white guy. You should have seen all of them run.
Well,
I was the only one that stood there.
You're kind of like me in that way, though, right? Like, it's like, what can I do now, right? There's nothing I can do. So, do what you're going to do.
But that's just the one thing is, never did fear death. To this day, I still don't. It's not that I'm, everybody, you fear death, but I think you kind of accept it because it's not your time. I've always thought like that. When it's time, you'll know.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, that's a pretty cool story. It validates what I'm talking about. Yeah. Thanks, brother.
But yeah, that's the whole thing, man. All right, dude, later.
You have a good one. Yeah. I mean, I'm that way too. Like, I don't know if I'm that way. I don't think I have had a gun pulled on me, but I get in those situations where I know there's nothing I can do about it. So whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So you just you got to let it go. And that's kind of like, I think if you wanted to top this whole week off with all the guests that we've had and everything that we've talked about, is faith is important, right? Faith in what you believe, faith in knowing certain things that you just can't see, touch, smell, hear, whatever. You just kind of know. And it takes faith to know these type of things. And I guess the moral of this week would be, it's have faith in certain things that you can't control the future, but you can have faith about it. And whatever's going to happen is going to happen, right? But we do got to get out of here. Next week's going to be another cool round of guests. I want to thank Pacho for hooking everything up this week. Also, don't forget we're going to be at the Ozark Conference April the 10th through the 12th, I believe. That's the right dates. The Ozark UFO Conference. Come hang out with us. And please don't copy the show without written permission. Thank you to our producer, Pacho. Also, thank you to Barbara, Amanda, Jeremy Scott, Eric Markham, all of you guys in the Fringe FM chat. Stay tuned for the secret teachings. You have a great weekend. Good night.
On this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised.